It's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of PvA Radio. I am one of your hosts, Luke Croft. Joining me as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellokline. Cody, how are you doing?
Doing good. Buckled in for a hell of a ride tonight.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a hell of a long episode. So hopefully everybody has brought their seatbelts and they have locked them in. So also joining us, top 50 Fallout 76 Battle Royale player, Larry Hunt.
That's not true.
It's easy to be in the top 50 when that's the total amount of players that are playing. How are you doing?
I am good. How about you?
I'm doing very, very well. And then also joining us this week for the second week in a row, the world's first professional Persona 5 player, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Nimsgern. Andrew, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on again. I'm looking forward to it for a long ride. Bumpy ride.
Yeah, long, bumpy ride. Dylan cannot join us tonight because of some prior obligations, so he is with us in spirit. None of us remember his E3 predictions, so they are lost to the wind.
Well, we know he said no, Todd, and that was wrong. So
yeah.
we're just gonna
Immediately.
Immediately.
The lights came up on the Bethesda stage to an incorrect prediction from Dylan. Actually, no, Pete Hines came up first, which blew me out of the water because I was like, what the world? Pete Hines is here, but let's not jump into this yet. Let's pause and just say right here at the top, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio, Wednesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Normally, each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week, and then we have an in-depth discussion about them. It's like a collaborative audio feature article, or CAFA, if you will. And Larry, what do we want people to do with that?
Carve that into your neighbor's home, but also spam the emote in the chat.
Yes, that is correct. If you can't catch us live, you can watch us. You can catch the VOD over on youtube.com/PvA Radio or subscribe to us on podcast services everywhere where it all goes live the next morning. And wherever you're listening to us, we appreciate it. You can like us, follow us, subscribe, leave a review, and we would definitely appreciate that as well. Andrew, since you are our guest, I am going to turn it over to you one more time like we did last week, just to kind of plug who you are, where people can find you, and yeah, just anything that you want to shill out here at the top.
Yeah, so kind of the whole same thing from last week. I mean, for me personally, I like to talk about video games, I like to talk about esports. I play both of them way too much. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Nimsgern, ANDREWNIMSGERN. I'm spelling my own name wrong today. But really, where me and Dylan are both from, we're from Popped Off. Just go to poppedoff.com or twitch.tv/popped_off or twitter.com/popped_off. We do cool esports and video game content, some other stuff as well, but that's kind of where we focus it. We do podcasts, written articles, videos, all that kind of feel. So go check out poppedoff.com. It's kind of the best place to find us.
All right, nice. I'm not gonna lie, Larry, I had mine and your Windows switched on the overlay, so I had to ninja edit it real quick and get us in the right spots. All right, a little bit of housekeeping here at the top. There is a new episode of Press Go Live, which is my interview show where I speak with smaller streamers. They have smaller communities but are doing cool things. The last episode that went up featured Etc. Kid, who is a music streamer. He's written over 3,000 songs with his community. We talked for a solid hour and 15 minutes just about creativity and what it means to be on Twitch but not stream video games. So it was a really cool conversation that we had, and I would definitely appreciate you not just checking out the episode, but going and checking out Etc. Kid's channel as well, because what he does is really, really creative. And then special news, join us on June 28th, starting at noon Eastern time, for a 24-hour charity stream where we will be raising money for able gamers. We're going to have prizes, shenanigans, special guests. It's going to be a blast. The three of us met last night to kind of put our schedule together. We've got some crazy, weird stuff. You're going to learn how to cook a steak and learn how to not play Overwatch. That's the little tease that we'll have for you. Until dawn as well. So lots of great stuff. Oh, is he talking to us?
Are you learning how to cook the steak and not play Overwatch at the same time, or are those two different things?
You're gonna do it. They're gonna come at two separate times, and they're all gonna be taught by yours truly.
Oh boy.
So, because I can cook a steak, but I cannot play Overwatch. So, yeah, definitely join us there. We'll be tweeting out links before, so that if you want to, give ahead of time, and we don't want to just tell you like, hey, you can only give during the 24 hours that we're streaming. So our goal is $5,000. We got big dreams for that show, but we're gonna have cool prizes, a lot of cool things going on, and it's just a great charity. We're hopefully gonna have somebody from Able Gamers come on to that episode of PvA Radio or record during that stream and have them talk about the work that they're doing. So stay tuned for more details on that. But that's June 28th, starting at noon. All right, guys. We loose, we nimble, we ready to go?
Shake it out.
Yeah, we're gonna be something. We'll see.
Because we got a lot of E3 to talk about, so it's gonna take a while. So what we're gonna do an E3 wrap up, and we're just gonna do this conference by conference, covering the conferences that we discussed in our pre-show rankings. So we're not going to cover the PC gaming show. We're not going to talk about the Kind of Funny Games Showcase, but all the other conferences, including EA Play, despite the fact that that was more of just like a weirdly structured live stream. We're going to talk about all those, give grades, talk about, go over any of our relevant predictions. So let's just go ahead and kick it off, guys. And let's start with EA Play. Overall, let's just start with our overall reactions to not separate live streams, but the weird little segments that they had. How'd you guys feel EA did with their unique approach?
I actually didn't mind the unique approach, but I feel like the reason I don't mind it is a reason that EA probably shouldn't do it. I was able to look at their schedule, see what I cared about, and watch it, and not pay attention to anything else. And that's kind of how I consumed their conference, because I didn't care to watch any of the sports stuff, because I just don't care.
Yeah, I really didn't interact with this much at all. I mean, I went back and watched the Star Wars. Otherwise, I didn't watch any of the other sections. I mean, I think it was smart. They had nothing new to show off. I mean, they had the games that had the small updates, but they didn't have anything big to show off. So I agree with not doing a conference. But I definitely don't think as many people tuned into it because of that. I didn't watch any of it. I usually watch all of V3, all of VA.
Yeah, I think the reason that Larry liked it is probably the reason they did it. I think they know that kind of the products they had on display this year were diverging in terms of audiences. I'm sure there's some crossover there. I'm sure there's plenty of crossover there, but there's always, with any of EA's conferences, there's always a lag, and that lag for a lot of people is the sports stuff. Because although that stuff makes a shitload of money, I don't know if those people are watching E3.
Yeah.
And I think for me overall, I just thought it fell pretty flat, and a lot of the stuff that I was hesitantly interested in was flat in general. We'll go more specifically into that, so I'll just leave it there for now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't differ necessarily in my overall thoughts for EA Play than you guys. It's true, like they certainly have an issue with the lull when it's like, watch this hologram of Damian Lillard dribbling on stage, in the middle of the show, and it's just not a place where the majority of the audience connects. But EA's in such a weird place right now. I think like the fact that we're not really seeing another dice shooter, that it was just more Battlefield 5, and it's not whatever the next Battlefield's going to be, or whatever the next Star Wars Battlefront is going to be. Like Yeah, they just, and then they didn't show some other, I mean, they didn't have other things that like are smaller but would probably fit in a conference like whatever the next Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare is going to be, stuff like that. So it makes sense why they did this, and I'm with you, Larry. I like that they did this schedule that was like, hey, if you care about Apex, tune in at this time, and if you care about The Sims 4, tune in at this time, and you could just kind of, it was like an a la carte E3 experience, So I think it was a good approach. I don't think it was really well executed, so it was strange. So Golden Boy and Greg Miller were hosts of it, and then Andrea Renee was supposed to be there, but she had a medical emergency that took her out of all of the EA Play. And so I wonder with some of those things, like especially the Star Wars segment, where Greg Miller's not really a big Star Wars fan, and he was doing those interviews, and it was really clear he was not a big Star Wars fan, how those things would have landed had they been led by Andrea Renee, who I imagine was originally slated to do those interviews, since she did like the original reveal of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order with Vince Zampella. Barely even couldn't be bothered to stand up, was barely just moving his mouth to answer the questions.
So weird.
So they weren't firing on all cylinders, but you can't blame them when something that big happens, like literally less than 24 hours before the show. So let's jump into actual details and reveals. What are you guys, and this is really, for all these conferences, it's really just open to whatever we want to talk about. We're not going to go announcement by announcement because we'd be here literally 6 hours. So let's just open up the floor, whatever games you guys want to talk about from EA Play.
Well, I mean, obviously the biggest one for them was that Star Wars game, and watching all the gameplay and everything, it's exactly what I expected from Respawn, and that is not a bad thing at all. I'm so pumped for this game. The moving through the environment, the choices you can make on whether you're going to engage or not engage, but the combat looks so much fun. They talked about how contextual it is, and a lot of those moves are, you're deciding in the moment by what buttons you're hitting, how you're executing those things. They're not really preordained. You're hitting this button to pull this guy into his laser bolt or whatever. It looks like a blast. Can't wait to play it, and just the tie-ins into the story. Having Saw Gerrera as a character you're fighting alongside of, I'm so hyped for this game.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have too much more to say on top of that. I mean, it looks great. I'm excited for it. I want it to kind of come, and realistically, that's the only thing that really stood out for me for the conference. I mean, yeah, it was what I wanted to be, what we all wanted to be. I mean, Forrest Whitaker making an appearance for his character was definitely not what I was expecting. But yeah, the game looks great. I know some people weren't as excited on it after they saw more gameplay. Still looks like something I'm interested in. I love Star Wars, so I might be a little biased in that.
I guess I'm going to be that guy. This just really fell flat for me. And I will say that when I saw the God of War reveal, I also, a lot of that appealed to me, but the combat to me looked a little bit stiff and flat. But once you get your hands on it, it feels totally different. So that may be the case here too. The combat just looked sort of evocative of God of War, but just something about it was off. I don't know if it was the animations. I know him running around looks super awkward with his arms flailing around all over the place. I don't know what it was. It just looked like it's obviously taking hints from God of War, like kind of a very purposeful combat. It's taking some hints from Uncharted in kind of the traversal aspects of it, but it doesn't seem like it's really executing on any of it in a particularly unique way. Also, it's, to be fair, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, and this is the aspect of Star Wars, the Jedi, that least interests me. I'm more interested in the hard scrabble people on the ground trying to make it in this galaxy, which is not what this game is about. But I think it looks very pretty. I didn't really get any hints of the story, which is kind of the biggest selling point of this for me and for many people. It's a narrative game. I didn't get any hints of what the protagonist is like. I'm sure that will come later. They're just trying to show how it plays, which is great. But for me, it just fell flat.
And I think that this is the one game that really suffered because of the format that EA Play took. I think where like Apex and Battlefield, and even though they're going to be new games this year, Madden and FIFA, like they're known quantities that you can kind of deep dive in, and people have like an anchor point, understanding how these games feel, what they play like, their own attachment to that game in particular. Whereas with a game that hasn't released yet, saying we're going to set aside 20 minutes to kind of deep dive into this thing that really we don't want to show too much because it's not out yet, but also it's going to rely so heavily on like you're playing as a Jedi, you feel powerful playing as a Jedi, but we don't have like a real sense of that. I don't know. I think you're towing this line of what to show, how much to show, how do we reveal any of the story, and if so, how much of the story. And that's okay in a 3 to 5 minute trailer that's being shown in the middle of a conference, and then maybe somebody comes up and says a couple things about it, and then you have like another teaser trailer right after it or something like that. But 20 minutes of let's sit down and chat about this thing and look at it, just it felt a little unnatural and not the way that I really like unannounced, not unannounced, unreleased games being talked about. So I think that it suffered some from that format.
It also suffered from the interviewer, Greg Miller, not really giving a shit about Star Wars.
And giving a lot of crap about himself.
Yes. Well, that's Greg.
Yeah. I hate him interviewing people, though. Like, he should interview himself. He'd do a great job at it.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Larry, by the way.
It's all good. I was going to say, I will say that as far as that conference goes, the things I'm hyped about are watching the gameplay. I will, you're absolutely right. The sitting down and talk about it for 20 minutes. They were just so unwilling to share many details that whole segment made zero sense. Like, it was just a whole lot of, tell me more about this. We're not really going to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. I want to move on if we're good on Star Wars, because I don't really have a ton to say. Let's move on to Apex. Apex was strange to me because I feel like we got nothing really new outside of Watson out of Apex, because they announced some of the stuff the week before as far as the different challenge systems and the is it Apex Elite? What is that mode called right now?
Apex Elite.
Yeah,
that
Apex.
was a really weird decision to do that last week too.
All right, so
Larry's got a conspiracy theory here. Here we go. Did you wait?
I've got this conspiracy.
Did you stand up just to move your lamp closer?
Yeah, my wife rearranged my space. The joke doesn't work well without the lamp.
All right, go for it. Sorry.
All right, so they weren't going to release Elite at the time that they released it, and we weren't going to know all about season 2. But after the bad news came out about how the finances were doing, they went ahead and dropped all that ahead of time, and I believe that's why their conference fell so flat.
Because they didn't announce anything outside of Watson, right?
Right, they just told us stuff we'd already known. They gave us a trailer for an event that was halfway over. Like, the whole there were 13 minutes of that conference devoted to things that we had already known for 2 weeks, I think. So, like, I really believe that they dropped that stuff early to like pull out of a tailspin of, no, look, we're doing well, guys. Don't worry about us.
And I had big expectations. If you guys don't recall from a couple weeks ago, big expectations of what we were going to see from Apex at EA Play. I was like, we're going to get the mobile game announcement. We're going to get a new map. We're going to get at least 2 new characters. We're going to get this and that. And we got nothing.
I would have been fine with even one of those 3 things happening would have been fine. The map was one that I thought was most obvious, especially comparing to Fortnite. Like, sure, we don't expect you to do it as quickly, but once in 4-5 months now it came out in February. So about 4 months now to announce a map change, or even a month out, should not be that big, even if it's just adding a new part. So I didn't catch this. presentation, but I heard nothing come out of it, which was not a good sign because they needed some publicity about this game.
Yeah, the only other thing that I remember them talking about was a ranked mode,
Yeah.
which
Season 2 will bring you a rank
is
mode.
them doubling down on an audience they don't need to double down on.
Anyone playing ranks already in the game.
Yeah, exactly. This was their chance. I think we're gonna be talking a lot this episode about missed opportunities.
I do want to. I want to push back on the criticism on the rank. While I agree that the people who care about that are already playing your game, and that may not necessarily be your audience, the conversation overall around battle royales is that we want some sort of ranked ladder and some sort of way to climb. And there's been debate about who's going to get there first, and Fortnite's been trying to implement or been talking about implementing a rank system for a while. And haven't done it yet. So I think it's a bit bigger of a deal in the battle royale like community at large that a ranked mode is coming to Apex because they're the first to do it in that genre.
Oh, certainly, but I don't think. I think the point of criticism is less that it's significant on its own, and more that it's not as significant in the context in which it was announced.
Yeah. At E3, that's not the people you need to win over. It's everyone else tuning in after Star Wars, saying, "Oh, hey, Apex! I remember hearing about that. What's new? What's going on? What makes me want to jump back in?" And a ranked mode is not going to make anyone that left come back in. Maybe a very, very small section.
Yeah. I thought there was a lot, like all the stuff that we had been talking about that you had mentioned, Luke. And like at least one of those things is a shoo-in. And the thing I thought a map was sure. I thought they'd do a much more concrete outline of their vision for moving forward, which they didn't do, which was very disappointing. The only other game that is in a tailspin that looked worse at EA's conference is Anthem, which was just really sad. But they should have been playing the Curb Your Enthusiasm music over that entire segment.
Wait, did they show Anthem on stage? I thought
they had like it was like a little transitional interview between the Battlefield 5 segment and the FIFA 20 segment.
It was so sad. They just stuffed it in the middle there, which shows you what they're thinking about it. But I think
they weren't even going to have it originally, which was freaking out everyone.
I think the Apex segment was just a missed opportunity. Disappointing.
So they did mention that there is a map event coming up in passing, but that's not good enough. And like everything that they've announced over the last couple weeks, they should have just saved it for this conference where they were planning to devote half their conference to it anyway. And I think that overall we'd be feeling a lot more excited. Not quite as excited as we would have been had we got everything that we were kind of hoping and expecting, but it wouldn't feel like old news. We'd have at least a little excitement, you know?
And EA's got to get this in their mind. Like, to me, I'm with you, Cody. I thought we were going to see a lot more of a roadmap of, hey, not only is this the specific content you're going to get, but here's our philosophy behind ongoing content and the way that it's going to look. And what it comes across to me is EA being 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door as far as the future of this game. And EA's got to get this through their skull, right? At some point with these franchises, like, you cannot say we're going to half-ass it until and see if we can get some success, and then we'll put support behind it. Like, that's what we've seen in Anthem and in Mass Effect, all these other games where they're like, hey, we're going to kind of half measure this thing and then back out. And I'm just a little nervous about the long-term viability of Apex Legends, given the hesitancy they have to talk about anything beyond what's going to happen in the next 2 months. So
I think it's warranted. Yeah.
Any other games you guys wanted to touch on from EA Play?
Sims 4 is free.
All right.
Really?
Anything else?
I think that's pretty
I don't think any of us had any EA predictions. Am I right?
No.
All right. So let's go around. Let's give our letter grades. I know Cody's very excited about this portion of the show, so we'll let him go last. Larry, let's start with you. What's your letter grade for EA Plays?
I'll be nice and give him a C, because Star Wars looks really cool. C for cool, guys.
All right, Andrew.
They only got me to watch one section. It was okay. I mean, a C minus. I don't want to give them anything lower than that, but barely a C minus.
Yeah, and I guess we're grading this on our own personal reactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna give it a D because I didn't really care about anything. You're right. Everything they showed about Apex we'd seen. Star Wars, like, okay, that's cool. That's what I expected. No, it isn't really that cool. And then everything else was like, all right. Cody.
I'm gonna give it a C minus, but only because I've devoted a lower grade to someone else.
Okay.
Yikes.
All right, let's move on to Microsoft. So I think let's talk big question here, big picture. I think we all kind of laid it out in our multiple conversations before E3 that this was a moment for Microsoft to take advantage of. And so let's give our overall thoughts on the conference in itself, and then the conference also within the context of that conversation about that moment. And Cody, let's start with you for this one.
Yeah, I think we had talked a little bit about this when we were live streaming our reactions. I think as a conference, it was perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. I think there are games that were shown off that I am genuinely excited about. Unfortunately, some of the luster of those games announcements were kind of taken away by leaks. Others, just smaller indie games that I'm super excited about. I think there's a decent amount that I am genuinely excited about, but I think in the context of what this conference needed to be for Microsoft, it's a huge missed opportunity. And there's that phrase again. It's coming up again. So I think as a conference, perfectly fine, but this is a year where it needed to be more than just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have nothing to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just playing host here, keeping it moving.
No, yeah. And I agree. I think it was a good conference. And a good conference can get away any other year except this year when so much was put onto them. They were supposed to walk out on stage and be the talk of the video game industry for the next couple of months because Sony didn't come out and this was their big chance to shine. And this would have been a fine conference no one would have had any complaints with if it was last year, the year before that, any other year. But with Sony not being there, that raised the expectation for Microsoft. They had no what the heck moments, like just shocking things outside of the one moment we'll talk about in a second. But that wasn't even a first party game. It was for a game we already knew about, and it was only cool because of who it was and had nothing to do with the actual conference. So overall, it was just a fine conference, which is bad because it needed to be great or better.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that. Just I would say that across the board, it was a whole lot of. They gave me a glimpse at things, but it was sort of exciting, but it just wasn't enough. Whether we're talking about Halo, whether we're talking about xCloud, whether we're talking about all of these games coming out, like I came away from it being like, oh, there's some kind of exciting things on the horizon, but I just don't know much about any of them. I don't know enough about them that I'm like, I can't wait to get a hold of that.
Yeah, very little gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Which was just a common trend across all of E3 pretty much. Like, just not a ton of gameplay for anything. It was really strange, but I land very much so with you guys in terms of them not taking advantage of this moment. And while I do agree that from an announcement by announcement standpoint, it was still a very solid conference. There's something like uniquely unoriginal about the way Xbox has approached their conferences over the last 3 years or so. To the point where they almost go beat for beat exactly the same as they have the year before. It's like they show up in January, right? They're like, all right, guys, time to start talking about E3 in 6 months. And they say, all right, we have our timestamps to the left here. Let's just erase all the game names out and plug new games in. Because it's always just like, let's kick it off with a couple trailers. We're going to, in the middle, do this ID at Xbox thing, and then we'll do a deep dive into whatever first-party game we've got that's coming up. Then we're going to talk Forza, and then we'll end...
Too long. wrong every single year.
And then we'll talk very vaguely about hardware, because even the year that Project Scorpio was announced, the details weren't given at E3. The details were given at Gamescom a few months later. And so it all just felt so eerily similar to other years, to the point that by the time Bethesda's conference ended, much of what happened at their conference was just wildly forgettable. And this was not the year to be wildly forgettable, given the position that they'd been placed in. So, all right. Well, let's drill down. What game do we want to start with? I'm not playing host anymore. Fight for it. What are we starting with?
I don't think we should start with a game.
Okay.
I think we should start with a moment.
Up in history. An E3 moment of history.
I wish that we could have captured my reaction below the waist for this moment. Because I'm not afraid to admit I orgasmed.
I have it clipped if you want me to pull it up on screen.
You didn't capture the majesty of it.
Cody has been playing it tame for 43 episodes for this very moment.
Well, can you blame me?
I can't.
Keanu Reeves was revealed as a character in Cyberpunk 2077 at the end of the trailer, and then he fucking walked out on stage and proceeded to be the most goddamn charming person in the entire world. These are two things that I didn't know I needed in my life together, but I have somehow received from the heavens. I think everybody, the internet completely was obsessed with this moment for the ensuing 72 hours.
Mad Brock says breathtaking.
Well, and here's the thing. Everybody assumes that the guy that yelled "you're breathtaking" was in the audience. It was actually Cody. He heard him from across the coast, from across the country.
So if you are a Reddit user, I must highly recommend the subreddit Keanu being awesome. If this moment was enjoyable for you.
Oh, it was.
But as big of a moment as Keanu coming on stage and being announced, it gave us a release date for Cyberpunk as well. That no one thinks they're gonna hit.
No.
I don't remember what the exact date is. It's March.
April 20th. No, April 26th.
Something like that. So it's spring. It is spring 2020 for a game so many people were 90% certain was a next generation console game.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go to the predictions board real quick, and then I'll turn it over to you there, Larry, because there is a Cyberpunk 2077 prediction on here. It says Cyberpunk 2077 will have a true E3 presence on stage and blow the doors off the motherfucker. This is according to Cody, but still struggle with representation issues. But it doesn't get a release date. That was Cody's prediction. So,
well, I got 1/3 of it right.
You got we'll give you a third.
And
really?
I really
Would you give him a third? I give him a half point for blowing the fucking doors off. I mean, this is the biggest moment of E3. I would fight that just because of how big of they blew the doors off with Keanu, that announcement. And I've heard their presence at the E3 has been pretty well. I'd give him half a point for that.
Oh, also there's a thing today that came out about a trans model used in a hypersexualized way on a poster, so I get points for representation issues as well.
Yeah,
You couldn't go in E3 without them having some sort of representation issue for this game.
All right, we're giving you a half a point. Larry, you waited patiently. You're breathtaking. Let us know what your thoughts are.
I really regret letting go of. So this was a prediction that I let go of since you got to it first. But my pushback was, this is going to be, if it had been my prediction, and I think I voiced this when we talked about it. I was saying it was going to be slated for release before the next gen, and it was going to be the last great RPG on this generation. So I wish I'd gone with it, but I've got zero. I've got nothing. That said, was Ghostwire Tokyo in the Microsoft conference as well? Where was that?
Bethesda.
That's Bethesda. Okay. So I've seen plenty of people petitioning that the entirety of E3 should be hosted by Keanu and Ikumi Nakamura. And I 100% agree.
Yes.
Both of those people, it was just so refreshing to see genuine enthusiasm instead of scripted enthusiasm.
I will say this. The Keanu moment redeemed what the Keanu moment and the release date redeemed what was otherwise a pretty underwhelming showing from Cyberpunk 2077, especially for a game that we're supposed to expect is going to be coming out in the spring of 2020, and we got almost no gameplay, maybe 5 seconds total of gameplay. Yeah. The Keanu moment is the moment that everyone was talking about, but without that moment, we're just going to be like, oh, we got another trailer and a release date, and like the conversation doesn't go much farther than that. It's
odd to me because this is the one of two pretty significant games that has a presence on the E3 floor, but did not have a significant gameplay trailer.
I have to imagine that that's a part of the strategy, though.
I think, it's 100%. I just don't know if it's... Yeah. I think that works if there's a behind closed doors demo, because you can generate hype kind of exclusively through the press, which is a more traditional way of doing it. I think people start to feel cheated when you know that there are other regular people seeing the game and you're not seeing that. I'm sure they'll end up releasing a chunk of whatever they have showed people on the E3 floor and behind closed doors. I'm sure they'll release a chunk of that, but I think it's the same thing with Avengers. I'm like, why aren't you showing us a little bit of something here?
I can't wait to talk about that. I cannot wait to talk about Avengers, but that's not what we're here at right
now.
Yeah, well, and I think a part of it is one of the big criticisms that people have about gameplay footage from the E3 stage is how scripted it tends to be, because they're trying to highlight like, oh, look at this quirky little like gameplay mechanic that we've put into the game. And maybe the thought is like, look, every single outlet, and regardless of size, is here with some sort of ability to capture footage while playing these games. So people are going to see Cyberpunk being played because it's on the floor, and they're going to see it in a much more natural way that doesn't feel as scripted. Again, I don't agree with that being good logic, but I can see it being a part of the logic.
Yeah, I also think there's an inherent challenge to showing a game like Cyberpunk. I don't think it's a game that showcases well in small chunks. Which is why they've been showing it like 50-minute chunks of gameplay to people behind closed doors. I think it's a difficult game to show on an E3 stage because it slows down the conference, even if it is exciting. It just eats up a huge chunk of a conference that was already pretty busy for Microsoft. So I can understand. I just wish we had seen a little bit more, even though I think the CG trailer was cool on its own. I think it's not something that I would have liked to see on the stage. I would have liked to see that released separately.
So if we're ready to move on, I'd like to talk about Halo.
Yeah.
So in our prediction episode, I said that they either have to go like pedal to the floor or not show me much of anything. And I was underwhelmed by what they showed us. But the game is still a ways out, so I've been talked back from some of that. But I do actually think that the trailer is a lot more of a big deal than it initially seems. So the last Halo game ends with Cortana full-on evil taking over the galaxy.
Spoilers.
And, I mean...
yeah, that actually blew me away.
Oh, well... I'm shocked about how many people never got to the end of that game. A lot of people who started that game and never got to the end of it, which speaks to that game in a lot of ways. But that's not relevant right now. What is relevant is the end of that trailer is huge. Chief loads the chip, no AI detected, and the guy tells him, Chief, it's over, we lost. And you see this like decimated Halo ring. I am pretty sure that what that means is that Cortana fired a Halo ring, which means that she wiped out a like sentient life, except those who were protected in some way. But I don't know that for sure. And I think that's the problem with that trailer. Like Halo has always launched with these like deeply emotional trailers. And I think that in a lot of ways this could be that, but so few people knew what was actually being talked about that this trailer couldn't have the impact that they wanted it to have. And so in that regard, once again, you had a missed opportunity.
So, Larry, I'm very glad we're talking about Halo Infinite right now, because you and I had a conversation, and I'm gonna readdress that conversation that we had offline, and then totally change my mind. I do think that the trailer is significant, right? And more than just because I think the initial reaction is just like, oh, well, that doesn't really tell us anything about the game. And my initial reaction was it does, because so much of the conversation around Halo has been, oh, this is going to be some shared world shooter. We're all our own Spartan, customizing ourselves, yada, yada, Destiny style. And so my thought when watching this trailer was, oh, man, there's Chief floating out in the middle. They're going to try to repower him up. And I was like, holy shit, are they about to kill Chief in the middle of this trailer? Like, and just get it over with to let people know. And then he springs to life, right? And then my reaction becomes, oh, okay, well, that's that kind of does away with that speculation that we're all going to be our own Spartan. This is going to be yet another story about Chief. But then now I'm thinking, what if it is just the beginning? Because, all right, Halo Ring's been fired off. Chief says, the guy piloting the ship is like, we got to run. And Chief goes, no, we fight. And he preps for the fight. What if at the very beginning of Halo Infinite, he goes in to fight while the Halo Ring has been fired and he dies in the middle of that fight? And then it becomes about everybody being their own Spartan.
I feel like that's something you'd want to show.
Yeah, you need to show that.
Not a year and a half out, though.
I don't know what this game is. I want to know what this game is.
And that's what I was saying last week. They either needed to not talk about it or they needed to tell us a lot.
They weren't in a position to not talk about it, because everyone would have been, where is Halo, if they would not have shown it at the end there, which means they would have had to go back and talk about it more, which is what I thought they should have done. They should have laid out that this is a new journey in Master Chief's, a new part of Master Chief's journey, or they need to say, we are stepping away from Master Chief. He'll still be part of this universe, but it's time for you to step in. They needed to tell us what to expect, because there are rumors of both right now.
Well, they did show up, and I'm still like, where's Halo?
It sent mixed messages.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah.
And for, in particular, this franchise needs to avoid that, because Halo, what number was it? 5. Halo 5 suffered from mixed messaging, like poor messaging, worse than anything. The message they sent about what that game was destroyed the reception of that game, because it wasn't at all what they presented as. It wasn't some showdown between Locke and Chief. It was, you play as John Locke, you get a taste of playing as Chief, and they're all buddies like 5 minutes into the game. That's a slight exaggeration, but only a slight one.
Well, yeah, Halo 5 didn't suffer from mixed messaging. It was just complete and total, like, misrepresentation of what the game was going to be. So, but I think the most significant thing about Halo is not anything that we saw from the trailer, right? It is that it is going to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5, Jesus Christ.
Oh.
For
we can only wish.
For Project Scarlet. Like,
I think 2020.
That's in fall 2020, and I think that that's a bigger deal than people are giving it credit for, because, I mean, we got to think back to the original launch lineup of the PS4 and the Xbox One and how abysmal it was, right? And the fact that there is now a Halo game, a mainline Halo game that will be available day and date at the release of the next Xbox, I think is a really, really big deal that not enough people are talking about.
Yeah, hopefully it's a sign of things to come as well.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm clearly angling for that partial point on my prediction, but I would argue that this indicates that Microsoft has learned a lesson about needing to have games available at launch, but that's up to you guys.
So to come back to Larry, it says Microsoft learns from the last console launch and comes out swinging with a nice launch lineup. The majority of the 14 are next gen. All right.
Okay, do we need a point?
Do we need to break it? You get like a 14th of a point.
And like the games still going to be on PC. I think it's going to be cross-platform even. It's not even a console exclusive. It'll be a launch lineup, but
that ship is sailed.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But
that
I'm
Microsoft
also really
has
disappointed.
anymore.
Yeah. I'm really disappointed with the 14 games showing. I feel like we did not see much from a lot of these studios that we were promised. A couple remasters is what we saw from most of them. No new IP. If any, sure, they could be saving that for next year for that launch lineup that Larry's talking about. But I was hoping to get some teases of like upcoming games down the road, not more DLC or remasters. That worries me a little bit with what they're focusing on in these studios. Yes, they've recently been acquired, but we wanted something. We wanted one new game announcement here. I don't feel like we got that from any of the studios.
We got Bleeding Edge.
Ninja Theory game.
Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge, that is true. I'm sorry about that.
Which is not what I gather people want from Ninja Theory.
The more I hear people talk about playing it, the more I'm like, maybe this is going to be cool.
I've heard it's not bad.
Yeah, everybody seems to be having a great time with it. And they do, if nothing else, Ninja Theory knows how to design great action, which is a good sign in a game like that.
When the Waypoint guys are talking about how much fun they had with a 4v4 competitive game, you know it's probably pretty fun to play.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So back to your prediction here, real quick, Larry. You go to the police station, right? You've been assaulted in the middle of the grocery store while buying your Chobani yogurt. All right. Makes sense. They say, Larry, we're going to bring you into this room, and we've got a lineup of people for you to identify your assailant. And and the lights come on in the room, and they march one man out. What kind of lineup is that?
It's probably easy to pick one.
Yeah, it's probably a really good one if you only need one.
That's beside the point. It's not really a lineup, is it? And so
you got
one
me.
game for the launch of the Xbox, the next Xbox, doesn't really count as a lineup, I would say.
That was a very long, protracted metaphor, almost as long as Forza Legos.
That whole car was made of Legos, though.
And Luke called that.
Was anybody else's mind blown when they were like, it's 500,000 Legos? I'm like, that's gotta be 7 million Legos. There's no way that it's just 500,000 Legos. That was the shot. That was the surprise of E3.
The most underrated moment of E3.
Yeah, that DLC looks cool, but yeah, they spent way too long talking about it. Yeah. But the Hot Wheels stuff was cool in the last Forza Horizon.
Can we talk about the thing coming out of the conference that I think Andrew was the most excited about, which was Game Pass?
Game Pass? Yeah, that's what I was kind of waiting for my moment to hop in there. So, I've subscribed. It's taken me like 18 times to update my computer to make sure I have the right version of Windows so that I can use it. Because apparently if I'm using May's update versus June's update, I can't use it. But after all that, yeah, I mean, I was beyond ecstatic about that. There's a couple of things that they did. So I love that they finally brought that to PC. So Games Pass now on PC, play all the first-party exclusives kind of going forward and going backwards. Can now wait to play Halo Wars 2. But also the thing that I think we saw coming, at least I saw coming and I wanted, was the Ultimate Games Pass. Or whatever, the Ultimate Game Bundle, whatever they call it, Ultimate Games Gold, or where they include Xbox Gold, Games Pass for Xbox, and Games Pass for PC, all for $15 a month, is a ridiculously good deal and something that I think is going to be more common now. I would not be crazy to see PlayStation including PS Now in their subscription going forward, and I think that's really good for all consumers. And I love that announcement even more.
Yeah, I'll love to see that from PlayStation in like a decade when they catch up.
How much is Games Pass a month by itself, though?
It's $10.
Yeah, so it's 10. So if you do the monthly deals, right now it is 15. I mean, if you were to buy a year of each, it'd break down to be $15 a month. So they're not really giving you any value with those two, but you get PC's Pass on top of it now, and it's all in one, so you don't have to worry about multiple subscriptions. But it's really not that good of a deal financially. I just love that they're bundling it all in and making it easier.
Well, no, so you
get
don't
gold
get,
too, right?
Yeah, you get gold as well, and like it's not one of those things where you pay for Game Pass on Xbox and you get it for PC. They're two separate services. So you're looking at the $10 for the PC version, $10 for the Xbox version, and then I think it's $10 per month if you're going month to month for Xbox Gold as well.
I think so. Yeah, something around that.
Well, I thought it was $60 a year.
Well, it's $60 a year, but there's month to month options that are there's a month to month option that's $10. So, in thinking about the way you're paying for it, you're getting it for about half the price, all of it. So it's a $30 value for $15.
Yeah, I was just kind of saying that if you buy it yearly, it ends up being $15 a month. But I agree, for people that do buy monthly, they do end up saving money. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It is good.
And that's the thing I was going at was if you're going to use it on both PC and Xbox, and yeah, it does wind up being a great deal. But like currently, you can get it for $15 a month if you're buying an Xbox. Actually, you can get less for that because you can buy a year of Xbox on sale for like $40 a lot of the time if you pay attention and look for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is nice, it's convenient, and it is a deal if you're going to use both platforms for sure.
And Game Pass is going to be a major part of Xbox's future, and I think that's what it boils down to. And we're going to give Cody the point on this, that because he had a prediction: the future of Xbox Game Pass is not on Xbox, and it's not. It's coming to PC. We knew it was coming to PC. I thought we were going to see more announcements about other places that it was going to be coming, namely the Switch. We didn't get that, but I think it's clear that Microsoft will not stop until this is on as many platforms as humanly possible, and PC is just the next natural progression for it.
I'm a little surprised after tease going forward that Ubisoft put theirs on to Stadia. I am a little surprised. I know they're going, they have xCloud and all that kind of stuff too, but I'm surprised Game Pass did not end up on Stadia with how heavy Microsoft is trying to push it everywhere. It might not be now, but I could see it coming eventually because I think they want it everywhere. I think they'd put it on PlayStation if they could at this point. So I was a little surprised it didn't get announced for Stadia, but maybe that's a little early because they haven't even launched their own streaming service yet.
I think given the strategic partnership they brokered with Sony, I think the next console war that we can strap up our boots for, boys and girls, let's get to the forums, is between the console makers and Google Stadia. I don't think Microsoft wants to even approach Google Stadia about a partnership there. I think they want to make their services kind of standard across existing console lines and there. I think that is the future competition, and that's the way that Xbox is approaching that future. All right, what other games? There's a lot of games at Xbox. I was a little shocked. One of the predictions I wanted to make was that Ori and Will of the Wisp would drop day of, that they'd say you could go and play it, because I feel like we've been seeing that game for no joke 4 years at Microsoft's E3, and we still have to wait until 2020, right?
Yeah, spring 2020.
Crazy, but I'm excited about that game.
Yeah, another one that stood out to me was 12 minutes. Really curious about that. Usually not my type of game, but this one looked really interesting. It's just kind of a time loop mechanic where you're trying to solve it's kind of more visual novel-y, because you just kind of go through the same things over and over again, trying to figure out how the story goes. Apparently it's been around forever as well, and it's just finally now getting a release date. So that looks good to me. There's a couple other small indies, but this is the problem. I think we're all struggling to find other games to talk about at the Microsoft conference.
Well, there's definitely some,
Way of the Woods looked cool, but again, that's a smaller indie title.
Oh, Blair Witch was...
Oh, Blair Witch, that's true.
Blair Witch was the weirdest reveal. It was such a weird reveal because they made it... I think they intentionally made that to look like Outlast.
I think so too. Well, there was a moment where the guy's facing the wall, and I'm like, what are they, Blair Witch in it? And
30 seconds later they showed it, yeah.
Yeah, I was a little blown away by that.
It's interesting. I don't know if anyone was clamoring for that.
Are there any Blair Witch games that exist?
I think there was one, wasn't there, back in the day?
Maybe. I don't know.
I would be surprised if there wasn't one.
Yeah.
There's been 3.
Oh.
I guess they look like they're all part of one series, all from the 2000s. Blair Witch Volume 1, 2, and 3, all from 2000.
But it looked to me like a better made Slender the Arrival. Like that's the vibe that I was getting. Like if Slender the Arrival had more resources. So for me, it looks like a fun game. I'm excited to get my hands on it.
I'll be honest, I don't know really anything about Blair Witch lore. The only experience I really have of Blair Witch is that people kind of meme on it. But apparently there's a culture surrounding it of people who really enjoy the lore
it was
behind it.
revolutionary at the time it came out.
And when it released, people were like terrified by it. I remember that.
They thought it was real.
Yeah, they'll meme on it now, but I think it's just to cover over what a bunch of pansies we were in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't have any other specific games I'd like to talk about for Microsoft.
Anything with Elden Ring? I figured Elden Ring would be.
Yeah. I mean, we knew all about that. I think the trailer, I love anything to do with From Software, even just trailers like this I love, because that community is incredible at being able to pick apart and find information in that stuff. There's a great YouTuber named Vati Vidya who does real deep dive lore stuff, and he picked apart the trailer, just kind of inspecting like the influences. Apparently George R.R. Martin had a much more involved role than I thought he did on that. He essentially created the lore and kind of like the world and kind of created like a Bible for them.
So that's why
cool.
You're still waiting on books, because he's been busy with this.
Well, he also produced I think he produced and wrote a TV show. He's doing literally everything else.
Yeah, I think he's like
Thrones.
working on another VR game now too.
Yeah.
He's doing whatever he can out to finish this. But I think with Elden Ring, if we would have got any gameplay, it could have been really hype for me. Could have potentially been a game this show if they gave us 2-3 minutes of gameplay, but not seeing anything from it outside of that trailer makes me like cool when we do see it, but I think this game's really far off still. Yeah. So
I think it would have been hype if we had not known anything about it. Mm-hmm. Like if those two names, Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin, had popped up, people would have gone wild. Mm-hmm. But
there just wasn't much of a reaction to it.
Yeah, because people had already kind of heard about it days in advance. Yeah, again, I think it's interesting that showed up at Microsoft's conference. It's notable, I think, along with a number of other Japanese games and Phil Spencer's comments that he'd like to acquire a Japanese studio. Mm-hmm. I think in light of that, it's pretty significant, but on its own, it wasn't super exhilarating.
Yeah, we got, and that's a good place to mention this. We got kind of like a Japanese section. Like, here's our Japanese corner of the conference when they announced Phantasy Star Online 2. What's the name? Mm-hmm. Crossfire X. And then Tales of Arise, or Arise. So I thought that was interesting because that's a place that Xbox has tried to make inroads in. It's a place they've never found a footing in this generation, and for them to come out with two apparently mega franchises with Crossfire and Phantasy Star Online, and then a very beloved franchise with the Tales series. I think that's a pretty notable win for Microsoft in this conference. Also, are we gonna say that these numbers about Crossfire X are just completely bullshit? Because I am willing to say it. Because they said something like 600 million people or something like that registered accounts.
China.
It's like,
yeah,
it's from China. It's totally believable.
Bot accounts. That's what it is. 600 million
gold farmers.
And then, all right, let's hit on some predictions because I think that'll touch on some other things. Let's see.
So I got destroyed by really thinking that Microsoft would tell about the future than they were. You guys were right. But I was right that xCloud is coming before the next generation. So I will take that half point. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go there. I was going to go in an order, but Larry was like, no, I'm the host now. Look at me. I am the host now. All right. So Larry predicted Microsoft. Oh no, I'm sorry. We're giving you no points for the launch lineup one. You said xCloud details and release date prior to next gen consoles. Yes, we will give you a half a point for that because they announced it's coming out in October. This was a weird announcement, guys, because I don't think I understood what the announcement was until afterwards when it was explained. Because what it is it's essentially remote play. That your Xbox will become an xCloud server and you can play, but you have to be within range of it, correct?
I didn't hear that.
No, it just needs to be connected to the internet. So you can choose to use your own, you can choose to use their servers.
Okay, so like whatever you're closest to, or
I think so.
Okay.
Still not really positive.
Exactly.
Nope.
And there's where we are. And here's where we are. Like Google Stadia at least makes sense to me, right? Like go on YouTube, watch this Toe Jam and Earl video, and then click this button and boom, you're playing Toe Jam and Earl, right? That's not what xCloud is though. Like it was still a really weird announcement to me, but we're going to give you the half a point on it because they did say it's coming out in October and it's going to be compatible with your current gen consoles. All right, let's stick with Larry's here. Go ahead.
And I think it is going to be functionally the same as Stadia. I think that they made a mistake in trying to explain to us technical details without getting into the details of the technical details, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the server, your Xbox can be a server now. That sounds cool, but you need to explain that to me because I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Larry also said that the next Xbox name will emphasize the community aspect of the console. They just said that it's Project Scarlet, so we got nothing there.
I understand.
I think we've got more next gen stuff. I definitely want to talk about Xbox Scarlet, Project Scarlet, and what they did. But let's get through the rest of the predictions here for it. Let's see. I said that Microsoft will spend no more than 5 minutes talking about next generation hardware. They went fucking 5 minutes and 45 seconds. I was so mad. I was so close to getting it right.
I will give you that. You were much closer than I thought you'd be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Andrew last week being like, why would you do that? That's not even going to be close. Let's see. Were there any other next gen? I don't think there were any other next gen predictions. So let's talk about Scarlet real quick. What? They spent 5 minutes and 45 seconds talking about it, but they didn't say anything about it. That's the thing that makes me the maddest.
RAM, gigabytes, more hard drives, virtual RAM, cool monitors. Like they're literally just yelling technical specs into a microphone with people behind it. Like, what was this trailer? This was not needed at all. I would have preferred they didn't say a single thing about this. They gave us no new information than they gave us. It wasn't even a leak. They gave us this information before. They were just saying technical mumbo jumbo. It pissed me off more than I wanted to show, but it is ridiculous what this trailer did.
So I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. But I also think that this is a response to what happened last time the console launches were going on. Because there were all these, well, look at all of Sony's, like you had all these geeks who, some of them understood the specs and some of them didn't. And a lot of us who didn't understand were like, well, according to what I Googled, on paper, the Sony console is more powerful. I really think that this came from the place last time of, well, Sony's got the hardcore gamer console because the way they've done their RAM will be half a millisecond faster than what the Xbox has done. And my eye can't discern that, but I need to know that it's true.
Well, but the problem with even that logic is we don't have technical specs for either of these things. Like AMD has produced some sort of custom processor for the Xbox or whatever, but like both companies have come out and said like we're not ready to talk like specifics on the specs, specific specs.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just like I'm with you, Andrew. Like they just didn't really say anything during our live reactions over on twitch.tv/popped_off. I was like, buzzword, because that's all it was just like, you remember all those buzzwords that Sony talked about in that Wired article? We have those buzzwords too.
I'll tell you what this was. This was 5 minutes and 45 seconds of vamping for next year's E3.
Yes. Like, I'm just shocked they didn't talk about teraflops. We didn't hear teraflops?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, they probably would have, but they had to make sure to include in there that it's 10 times faster loading speed. And I think Sony said the exact same thing, so they had to make sure to include that line in there.
Oh man. And the worst part of it, right, was that they would have like these zoomed in pans across like, oh, look at this motherboard and this chipset, and it looked like it was going to culminate in the reveal of an actual console, and then the screen goes white and it just goes, here's the name you've known for months. We're like, no!
And how much
they would have gave us the name with nothing else, that still would have been huge. People still would have freaked out.
Yeah.
And how much do you want to bet that those motherboards and things they scanned across aren't even the actual components?
They're from the Xbox One.
Yeah, all they did was crack open an Xbox One. But again, I really do think it's just all about the perception. And I don't know. Sony said some stuff, so they had to say some stuff. And great job. We've all wasted each other's time. Thanks.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And you also screwed over my prediction by going 45 seconds over the clock. Like, yeah.
You know, if not for all the crowd screamers, you probably would have been fine.
We'll talk about that.
Too much time.
This was the worst year ever that I remember.
Well, it gave us your breathtaking, so I'm fine with it. You're all breathtaking.
Go ahead.
I was actually furious when CD Projekt Red offered that guy a free game for crowd screaming, because I was like, now you've encouraged it.
That same guy went over to Bethesda.
I didn't know that.
Wait. What'd you just say, Cody?
That same guy then went over to Bethesda and just heckled them for an hour straight.
Is that? Are you?
No, that's not real.
Oh, okay. I thought you had the leaks.
Yeah.
It's the United Heckling Cinematic Universe.
he's lore crafting over here. Yeah, so I understand we're still a year and a half out from next gen hardware, and I think that's why I made the prediction, because I was like, okay, it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk in depth about it, but just if you don't have anything real to say, don't say anything at all. So, all right, let's see. So no points for me on that. I
technically had a Microsoft one too, but it didn't end up showing that Microsoft, so I don't know how we want to do that.
Wait, what?
I technically had a prediction that was supposed to be at Microsoft as well.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. Because yeah, that's going to be interesting how we score that. I also predicted Microsoft will announce the acquisition of 3 new studios: Studio MDHR, Moon Studios, and Remedy. They announced the acquisition of 1 new studio, and that was Double Fine, which is a really cool story for Double Fine. Doesn't necessarily move the needle much outside of that for me. I don't know about you guys.
I want to give an award there for the most cringeworthy scripted thing that happened at E3.
Was that the embodiment of corporate Twitters talking to each other?
Yes. Yes, it was.
I don't remember that.
That's when they were like, we're so excited to work for Microsoft on all their games, Halo and this, and the guy's like, you won't be working on Halo. He's like, oh, what a relief. I was so genuinely worried that might be a real thing.
Oh, I don't remember that, but that sounds horrible.
I do want to call out that Cody tricked Cybill in the chat as well, with his crowd screamers cinematic universe. So yeah, I'm not giving myself any points on that because it was rumored that they had acquired new studios, and I was taking a stab at what those studios may be. Let's see. Let's get to Andrew's. Andrew predicted a new Smash character will be announced at the Microsoft conference, with Microsoft in all caps. Conference, and will either be Minecraft Steve or Banjo-Kazooie, and available right now. He did the classic Luke Croft. Like, he should have shut up like 40 words ago. All right? He'd have been fine. You'd have gotten half a point for...
I'm happy with the third.
You get a third.
You get a third.
I'm happy with the third. I'm happy with the third.
Because Banjo-Kazooie was revealed during the Nintendo conference, and he will be available in the fall, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Which is cool.
Let's see. Cody has several Xbox predictions here as well that we're going to hit on. Ghost Story Games reveals the title and concept of its first game on on the Xbox stage.
Nope.
Ken Levine nowhere near.
Nope.
Nowhere near the Xbox stage, so no points there. And then I'm going to throw this one in here because I think it's the only place it really would have fit. The next Bioshock from 2K is teased with title and music. New setting, time period, nothing about Bioshock either.
Those are both wish fulfillment.
But you do get the point for the future of Xbox Game Pass. Guys, any other honorable mentions from the Xbox conference? I do want to mention Gears real quick. Gears was strange because we got a deep look at gameplay last year, and now 3 months before the game's supposed to come out, nothing. Just really, really strange to me. The escape mode looks cool, but then they're like, let's go into the stage, and here's professional wrestlers about to play this game, but you're going to have to
stage, not show the gameplay.
Yeah, but we're not going to show them playing it, but they're definitely going to play it, guys.
They'll be sitting here under the stage for the rest of the conference. They're not allowed to leave. Dylan had the prediction. Was it Dylan who said that there was going to be a game capitalizing on the mobile game space and it was going to be Gears?
Well, now he said that somebody would
Esports.
torpedo. No, he said like somebody would torpedo their IP in order to get it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We knew about the Pops game that was talked about last year during the Gears conference. Also, very shocking they didn't talk about their tactics game, like their RTS game in the Gears. I think that game's been in the works for like 5 years. I think that Rod Ferguson came out last year and said, we've been working on this game for years, so maybe it's just going to be years before we ever see it again. So, all right. Any other thoughts on Microsoft?
No.
All right. Next conference.
Do we want to grade it?
Oh, yeah. Let's grade it. Let's start with Andrew. Andrew, what do you give the Microsoft conference?
I don't even know. What's the equivalent of like a 7 in terms of letter grade? Like a C plus?
Yeah.
Like it was good. C plus, sure.
All right, Larry.
I'll give it a B minus because like the conference was fine. It was good. Like they missed a lot of opportunity, but the conference wasn't bad because of that. It was all right. It was a B minus.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C, a solid C, just based off of it was a victim of circumstance with some of the different leaks that came out. Like, I agree with you, Cody, that Elden Ring would have been a lot more impactful had we not heard about it before. I think they wasted our time with Xbox Scarlet. I think the Gears stuff was weird. The Halo stuff was weird. Just a lot of really weird stuff. Cyberpunk was good, but I can't adjust a score or curve a grade because Keanu Reeves came out on stage. I'm sorry. It just doesn't do it for me.
I 100% can.
All right. Cody with an A+. All right, moving on.
No, I'll give it a B minus too, but only because of Keanu.
All right.
I just think like that's the hypest moment that came out of this E3, and I think it deserves to contribute to the grade somewhat.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on. Let's talk Bethesda. Came out a couple hours after Microsoft, and I think rendered much of Microsoft forgettable. What are your overall thoughts on the Bethesda conference?
I was really impressed and happy with what Bethesda showed. I really had a lot of fear going into that presentation that they weren't going to have much to show. It was going to be Fallout 76 DLC, ESO Online, all that. Well, that did take up a lot of it. They had a couple of new IP that were, one of them was kind of teased. You kind of made that prediction around it, but the other one was totally brand new. They both looked really good. I was really happy with what Bethesda put out there when I expected for it to be average to meh at best.
I think I was actually pleasantly surprised. I think we all had an idea that they'd probably double down on Fallout 76. I think the amount of stuff they talked about with it, and it all being free, was kind of probably a pleasant surprise for the community that's still stuck with it. There's always sections of their conference that I don't really care for. The Elder Scrolls Blades, the ESO on the Elder Scrolls Online. It's just stuff that, and the Elder Scrolls Legends is just stuff that doesn't interest me, but those communities are dedicated, and so I think those sections went on a little long. That trailer for ESO was way too long. That definitely dragged it down a bit. But I think that I really commend any studio that comes out and makes announcements for new IP, and the announcements for both of their new IP are extremely promising. We'll talk about towards the end of the show our trailer of the show award, but the Deathloop trailer was incredible, and the studio behind that makes me more interested. It's great to see that Arcane's actually doing something, and the concept of that game is really, really intriguing to me. I also just think like a conference should provide updates on ongoing titles, let you know about things that are coming in the very near future, and then let you know about things that are far future, and get you excited for at least 2 out of the 3 of those. And for 2 out of the 3 of those, I am. Doom Eternal looks awesome. Wolfenstein looks awesome. We've seen those already, but it's nice to see a little bit more. I think the Doom stuff went on too long with the multiplayer announcement. But I don't know. Overall, it was actually a pretty solid conference, even though I don't think Bethesda needs to do a conference every year, and this year confirmed that for me. I would have been fine with just breakout announcements for the 2 new IP and like updates, separate updates for the others. I don't think I needed a full conference, but compared to what we had seen up until this point, I think it was pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, and I'm always torn with Bethesda because I'm with you, Cody. I don't think they need to be there every year, and I don't think that they need to try to justify themselves being there every year. And I think that a lot of our perception of them being there every year is still riding on some of the wave that they created when they announced Fallout 4 and said it's going to be playable in 5 months from today. Like, that's kind of the perception we have of Bethesda. Like, oh, they come out and they make big splashes, but then you think like it's been years since they've done that. And last year we got 2 games that we're not going to see within the next decade, probably Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. Like, but that being said, it doesn't take away from any of the good that they did with the time that they had on that stage. While I think that they could have gotten by without doing E3 this year, like I'm with you. Deathloop was cool. Ghostwire, Tokyo was really cool. And then those games that we know about look really cool as well. But yeah, it was a good conference. It was solid announcements, but did not convince me that it needs to take place annually. So, yeah.
I was really pleased with the conference. I felt a little underwhelmed, but once E3 was over and I've had time to reflect, I really think that this was the best conference in the entirety of E3.
Whoa, spoilers. That's not until the end of the show, Larry.
Oh, that's a question we're covering? My bad.
It's almost like I put show notes together.
I thought we talked about it, and never mind. I misunderstood something. We talked late last night, and I understood that I wasn't supposed to look at anything. I was very tired last night. I'm sorry. I didn't look at anything.
Oh, yeah, there's show notes. It's all good.
Oops.
As a Fallout 76 player, though, what were your thoughts on their announcements?
Well, first off, Todd Howard coming out and being humble, shocking. I said that in the predictions. I was like, that's what they need to do. It's what I hope they do. It has to happen. Don't know if it can, but it did, and I was really pleased with it. I just want to point out how much I nailed Fallout 76 in my prediction.
Yeah, you actually did really well.
They were going to pull it out of its tailspin. They were going to announce all kinds of new content. The DLC was going to be, all right, now that you've reclaimed the wasteland, the settlers are coming back, NPCs are back. Boom. I am amazing in this conference and nowhere else. But no, I was thrilled with it. And again, I said this before we started recording, but go download the free trial if you haven't tried it, and just jump into that battle royale and try it out if you like battle royale. It's just a fun version of battle royale.
And if anyone needs someone to play Fallout 76 with, I know Larry, you're playing. I'll play too. If you message me on Twitter, say, "Hey, I want to play Fallout 76," I will be out within 10 minutes. So you'll find someone to play with too if that's what's holding you back.
Yeah, but I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a Fallout 76 player, but I thought that the tone that they set, not just with Todd Howard, but with the thread throughout the entire conference was really cool of like, hey, we're going to showcase people who have been really impacted in real tangible ways by the work that we've done, and show you that, like, look, we are making these games for you. We just are not making our collector's bags for you. So, but I thought tonally they really did something very un-Bethesda-like. They didn't come out with Andrew WK party at the beginning. They came out and they said, like, look, we make these games for you. We're going to continue to make games for you, and we're going to listen to your feedback. I thought it was cool for Todd Howard to say, we got a lot of criticism for Fallout 76. Well deserved. Like, I thought that was a good moment for them. I think the settler stuff is cool, fine. The NPCs coming back, that's cool and fine. It's a Fallout game. We expected NPCs from the get-go. Battle Royale made no sense to me, though, man. Like, who was clamoring for a Fallout 76 Battle Royale mode? And say what you will about the execution of it, but to me, like, the gameplay mechanics of Fallout are nothing to write home about. And now you're going to put some competitive mode in it that it's easy to get frustrated. Think about how much shit we talk about PUBG because of how clunky it is to play. Fallout 76 is the PUBG of the RPG world. And a battle royale just did not make any sense to me at the time of its announcement there. I was like, no one's asking for this.
Well, you know what? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It makes sense to me in the context of, and Todd Howard actually touched on this. We gave you a world where you could do whatever you want, and everybody's just really nice to each other. I think there are people who would like that mechanic of, they wanted the fighting mechanic. They wanted some kind of PvP without having to murder somebody in the streets and be labeled a murderer for it. So for me, it lets me scratch that itch because, as you know, as someone who played this game with me, Luke, I do sometimes just have the irrepressible urge to just murder somebody in Fallout 76. So this gives me an outlet where I don't get hunted. So I like it. I'm happy with it.
So Mad Brock in the chat over here on twitch.tv/PvA radio every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time asks, don't they still have server issues? Now you want 52 players. Are they still experiencing server issues?
I haven't experienced server issues in months. Well, I haven't been playing again for a month.
And I don't think
You can go in and try it for free this week only and be proven wrong about all the things you're talking bad about it. I mean, it's free. Go download it, give it a try, the Battle Royale, and you see that there is some charm to it. Not a ton of charm, but there's some charm to it.
And for the record, knowing Mad Brock, he's not asking that sarcastically. I think he was genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking to you too, Luke, not just Mad Brock. I'm talking to you.
The chances of me coming back in,
Fallout 76.
the chances of me coming back into Fallout 76, slim to none.
But in the main game, I haven't experienced server issues since I came back into it. And in Battle Royale, like, I was actually shocked. I was shocked at how smoothly you transfer in. It is a little hiccupy as soon as you drop in, but it is less of a problem, way less of a problem than PUBG. It's less of a problem than Apex Legends even. And I haven't played Fortnite enough to know if there's any hiccups when you're landing, but and even the landing it's a really interesting mechanic. Rather than jumping out of an airplane, you put a dot on a map and you can see your teammates' dots, and then once you lock in where you're going, it briefly shows you where everybody's dots are, so you know how screwed you are, and then you load into the game.
It's really scary when there's 30 people right next to you.
Yeah. So that's cool though. Like, I do think that was less of a moment of, hey, we're gonna, obviously it's free to play this week, we're gonna try out the Battle Royale mode. Like, that was obviously messaging to say, come on back and try us. But I think for much of that section, they resign themselves to understand, like, we are talking to the people that are still playing this game. And that's an okay thing. But that section, even to me, went on entirely too long, the whole Fallout 76 section.
Yeah, it was their, it's their really only huge ongoing thing. I think the fact that there's a free trial period and that all the stuff they've talked about is going to be free is them trying to, much like bring people back to the Wasteland, bring people back to Fallout 76. I think it is their attempt to reach out beyond the community. I don't know if it'll be successful, but I appreciated them being earnest about their mistakes, which I think it's a good sign that they can learn from them. I hope they do. I will never dive into this game because I have zero interest in the inherent concept of it, but I think it'll be interesting to track how they learn over the course of the years they dedicate to this game, because it does seem like they have a pretty good idea of where this game is going moving forward. I like the idea that they said phase 1 was you going out into the wasteland alone, kind of establishing your base and kind of clearing it out for other people to come back in, and now that there's a repopulation period, I don't know what the next period will be. Maybe it'll eventually just be a full-on multiplayer Fallout like everybody thought it would be. I don't know, that'd be interesting to see if it could actually eventually evolve into that.
I think it can eventually kind of have that same redemption arc of No Man's Sky. I do think they have a good path going forward. I do think it has that chance to turn around if they cater to their hardcore base for now, and eventually enough people who are talking about it say it's good enough that people could come back one day.
But I think the challenging thing in comparing it to something like No Man's Sky is I don't think No Man's Sky has done much in the way of gathering a lot of new players with these updates. I think they've generated a lot of goodwill among people who've stuck with the game, or stuck with the general, like having general interest in the game. But I don't think that their player base is like grown massively.
They
with
had
each
a
of these
unique
updates.
advantage that they came to Xbox like this year after all those expansions that came out.
That's a good
so
point.
They had a huge jump in player base, and then like people started going crazy for it on Steam. So that's when they had a big jump there. So I agree. It could be a lot harder because they didn't gain players through updates. They gained players releasing it on new platforms. So but the overall feel of it, I mean, that the community will no longer be against the game. They're like, this game actually turned out great. You screwed up in the beginning, but this game's not bad now, and I recommend giving it a try.
He talked about what a cool community sprang up in spite of the issues. And I think the one thing they could have done better in the Fallout segment would have been to highlight some of those stories, because we've highlighted some of those stories in our podcast. The craziest things that I've ever heard coming out of a game come out of Fallout 76. And they just really should have leaned into that, because for me, that's what enticed me to jump back into it in the first place. And I was like, I want to find my place in role playing in this world and who I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. So that's one area where I think they could have done a little better. But all in all, like, this game's it is I think it's already rescued.
Yeah. Let's touch on Andrew's prediction here while we're talking about Fallout 76, because I think there's a little discussion to be had around this. He said no one apologizes for what happened with Fallout 76, and then again, he could have just full stopped there, but still released Fallout 3 on Switch, and we know it's an apology.
Forgot about that second part.
I think I deserve half a point. I don't think there was an apology here. I think there was in a middle that they screwed up, but they never apologized.
I think this is the closest to an apology you can expect from Pete Hines and Todd Howard.
Yeah, I don't know if they were ever going to give an apology. I think admitting that that they fucked up is as close as you'll get.
So, do we want to give him the half point on this because nobody came out naked on a bearskin rug saying, "We're sorry"?
Well, is it an apology?
That's kind of where I'm at. If we weren't going to accept the literal "nobody says I'm sorry," we probably should have established that last week in our discussions. Because he is technically right that no one literally apologized. And you are right that they were never going to literally apologize. This is how corporations apologize. Yeah. There was criticism, and we deserved it.
That's the closest you'll ever get. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm comfortable with some partial points here.
All right. We're going to give you the half a point here.
Thank
Unless
you
it
very
impacts
much.
the final game, and then we'll take it all away.
No, those were the only two. Those were the only two I was going to get any points from. So do not worry. I think
Oh,
Larry's
that's right.
already
Yeah.
beat me.
You've got 0.83 points currently. Repeating, of course.
And I already know that's all I can get through. The other three are just so far wrong.
Matt Brock says, I feel they were just humble. And yeah, I think the humility is the part where we're talking about like that. That is the apology and the recognizing of, and then just like the whole focus of the conference. The tone of the conference is different than any other Bethesda conference we've ever seen before. But
And any other conference, period.
all right, as is our tendency here on PvA Radio, we have talked entirely too long about Fallout 76. So let's move on. What other games do we want to talk about? Let's talk. Let me open it up to you guys. What do you guys want to talk about from Bethesda?
Wolfenstein, New Blood, is that what it's called?
Youngblood.
Youngblood. Thank you. Sorry, I totally blanked on it. It's the first Wolfenstein game I've been excited about. I've never played I played a Wolfenstein game on the PC way back in the day, the first one. But this is the first time I've been excited about one in a long time, and it's because of the co-op focus. This is a game that I could sit down and work through with my wife, and it sounds fun to kill Nazis with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I probably won't play a co-op because I like the story, like enjoying those games as a narrative experience. But I just love that world and their absurd writing. So I'm excited for it too.
And the way and the care with which they build those worlds is just
and
really
apparently
cool
it's going to be more freeform, more kind of like embracing the arcane philosophy, which is awesome.
And I liked how they were like, we're going to smash up everything that people love about the 80s with everything that people love about Wolfenstein. Like, it just had a really cool vibe to it. Also, you guys were not privy to this last night, but during the PvA Nightly Rundown, which happens every weeknight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time over here on twitch.tv/PVA Radio, we said that if the PvA channel gets to 15 sub points by the end of the month, I will buy one of those speed skating suits similar to what the characters from Youngblood wear, and we'll wear it for an entire episode of the PvA Nightly Rundown. So,
how many subs do I need to gift to get that?
We need like 10 gifted subs to get to where we want to go, and then I'll be buying that skin tight suit to wear on an episode of the PvA.
They're Jewish super suits.
What's that?
They're Jewish super suits. That's what they are.
Okay. Officially? Trademark.
Yeah, no, that's
TM?
what they actually are. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like Dak Yakud is the ancient Jewish civilization or whatever.
Oh, didn't know.
Those games are rad. I fucking love those games.
So,
Matt Brock says that looked really cool.
what, me in one of those suits?
Not at all. Can't wait to see it in the same way that I would stop for a train wreck.
It's gonna be great. Yeah, I want to talk about the two new IP.
Yes.
Let's start with Deathloop, because I think Deathloop is probably the more mysterious of the two in some ways. Like,
They're both mysterious.
yeah.
Your
We know
prediction.
nothing about either one of them, but
Once again, Luke, the absurdity with which you nailed a prediction. In
I didn't nail this one.
You didn't.
I didn't nail this one.
Where
got-
were you off?
So I'm going to read my
mixed
prediction.
it.
I said Tango Gameworks will be on stage at Bethesda's conference to reveal a horror game that is not The Evil Within, but instead a game called Deathloop, which will adopt a similar looping mechanic to PT. So I do want to talk about Mad Brock. Thanks for stopping by, my dude. I do want to talk partial points here, guys. Because while it was not Tango Gameworks, it was Arcane Studio who's working on Deathloop, right?
Yes.
There's
it
a
wasn't
lot.
a horror game
What's that?
either. It wasn't a horror game either.
Okay, that's fine. Well,
The only part you got is that Deathloop showed up.
Yeah, I think this is like 0.2 points.
wait.
Is this not considered horror?
No.
What's it considered?
It's going to be like a first-person action thing,
Yeah.
like what Arcane does.
It'll be like Dishonored or something like
Yeah.
that. That's what I think it's going to be like.
Yeah. Okay.
The
All right.
crazed people that the man was concerned about fighting against, like it felt like a purge situation to me. But okay.
The thing is that the Deathloop thing was not a leak in the same way that like a lot of leaks, like the Elden Ring, like Elden Ring is going to be there. Deathloop was a trademark that was filed 6 months ago, and there's trademarks all the time that are submitted that never actually make their way out into the public as a game. So I just pulled Deathloop out of my ass as a trademark that had been filed. So I'm giving myself a quarter of a point here, guys, and you guys can suck
I'm
it,
fine
all right?
with that. I'm fine with
Fine with
that.
that.
All right. I don't think I'm going to win regardless, but I'm giving myself a
Deathloop
quarter
does
of a
look
point.
awesome. But that trailer is incredible.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I love how they explained it. Just how they explained it. I mean, I can't do the same words. Not that you should go back and watch kind of the reveal of it, but just the mechanic of that. Pretty much one of the two, you always have to die. I'm really curious how they're going to implement that. If you switch back and forth, like each mission going back and forth, are you both playing the same mission, like kind of a PvP, PvE kind of thing? I think there's a lot of ways they could take this game. I'm really curious to see how it ends up.
Yeah, my immediate reaction was that in Dishonored 2, there are two playable characters, and you choose at the outset which one to play as. Ultimately, you get to the same point with both of them, but it does diverge depending on who you pick. My inclination is to think it's a similar thing, but I think based on the concept that there's more interaction between the two of them throughout the game. These two assassins locked in a time loop. That idea just sounds fucking awesome, like they said on stage.
With two totally opposing motivations as well.
Exactly, yeah. Two totally opposing but somewhat complementary motivations.
Yeah.
I love everything Arcane does. The Dishonored games are some of my favorites. I think everybody should play them if they love kind of single player action adventure games. So I'm super excited to see what this turns out to be. And the fact that it has kind of, the trailer is sort of like a 70s, like sort of 60s mod style going on is really cool. I don't know how much that will play into the game, but that it just looks rad.
Yeah. Yeah, that game, it looks awesome. I'm very, very excited to see more from that. The other new IP we got was Ghostwire Tokyo from Tango Gameworks. And the other star of the show, I'm sorry, remind me what her name is?
Ikumi Nakamura.
And then in an instance of being totally reminded how old I am, when did this thing of I will die for her become a meme? I saw so many people when she was out on stage, like, I die for her. I'm like, what does this mean?
It means that you die for her. You love her.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't, but plenty of people would.
We saw her for 30 seconds. Was she
I would think about
even
dying
matter.
for her.
was she
She was
awesome?
very-
Yeah,
She
but
was very charming. She was very charming.
look, there's probably almost nobody in the world I would die for.
It reminded, when she came out, it reminded me of the guy who, I think it was old.
Oh, you cut out.
Oh, it reminded me of when the guy came out for Unraveled several years back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like, you could tell he just loved his game and was so excited to share it with us. And that is just refreshing.
It's infectious. I also gives a lot of credit to anybody who comes out on stage and speaks in a language that isn't their primary language. I don't know, her energy was just infectious, and the game itself looks really, really bizarre and awesome. I got some Death Stranding vibes here and there, but in a more concrete, like, I kind of know what this game is kind of way.
I'm really interested in this game because the Evil Within always interested me, like from the world standpoint, but I'm just not big on survival horror in that kind of way of like, oh, you got to manage your ammunition and yada, yada, yada. This doesn't seem like it's going to be survival horror in that sense because the who I assume is the main character shown in the trailer, the dude wearing the North Face jacket with the bow and arrow, seems very powerful. And
They said it was an action game.
yeah, so I'm curious to see a world built by this team in this it's still going to be a very dark and mysterious, oppressing, and probably terrifying world. But to play as a character that's not like, oh man, I'm dragging my limping leg behind me and I have to manage my medicine and my inventory. Like, that's what interests me. And just the pure cinematic, the trailer just dripped cinematic beauty and
The
quality.
aesthetic is really cool.
Yeah, it was.
I love that it's also super Japanese, and this is a studio that has largely made games that emulate a Western world and a Western kind of horror experience. So to see them kind of create something uniquely Japanese could be really cool.
This was another game that I was definitely held back though by not seeing even a small sliver of gameplay. I think either Deathloop or Ghostwire could have been another potential game of the show had I seen any gameplay. I'm still beyond excited for it. I am planning on buying both of them. But if you show a snippet of gameplay, let us know exactly what it is. This game could have been my game of the show because both of these look so cool. I knew within seconds of seeing the trailer I was going to buy them. But that gameplay that we saw at no conference, so it's not just Bethesda, but really is what held it back from being a holy shit. This is going to be a game I cannot live without.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we want to talk about from this conference?
Doom looked cool. I think you might have talked about that when I stepped away, but Doom looked cool. Wolfenstein looked cool. A lot of games I want from Bethesda, a lot more than I thought.
Did we we didn't get a release date yet for Ghostwire, did we?
No,
Neither one of them had a date.
those are probably pretty far away.
Yeah, that was my thought. I kind of didn't expect to see gameplay from it. Just like this is our first look, and I think we won't see that till the next generation probably.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect it, but I would have loved it, and that's just kind of. The game that show is there's only supposed to be one or two of them, and that's kind of what I meant. That if you do get that surprise gameplay too, it can really help.
Yeah. Okay.
The only other thing from the conference I wanted to talk about was just the weird Orion announcement that they announced, and how it just felt so out of place that they talked about this kind of like obscure tech that they were developing as supplemental tech for game engines that help them to stream better. It felt very GDC and not
it's not the right
E3
audience
at all. And but then like they showed the Doom demo on the phone, and that looked pretty tight. I mean, it was a little hard to tell what was going on just because it was over the shoulder, but I understood what they were trying to accomplish there. But then they're like, all right guys, go to this website so that you can sign up, and then you go and the website was down, and it's just like this whole thing is predicated on stable connections and being able to connect, and I can't even connect to the website that allows me to sign up for it. Like, I don't know. The whole thing was just strange to me and felt very, very out of place.
Yeah, it wasn't necessary.
All right, guys, let's grade this conference. What do you guys give it?
I think it was solid. The Orion thing was out of place. For me, this conference was an A minus. I'll give it an A minus. There are things that could have been better, and the only reason it's that high is because of the cultural situation they found themselves in. They handled a year of difficulty very well, I thought, and I didn't think they were capable of it. So they really impressed me.
I'm going to go ahead so that I don't just have the final word on every conference we do. I'm going to give it a B. And because I thought it had really high highs, Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, Youngblood, even the Doom Eternal stuff was really, really cool. But then we also spent just entirely too long on mobile games with Elder Scrolls Legends, Elder Scrolls Blades, Commander Keen, like a lot of just real weird stuff.
I forgot about that.
The Stadia thing, like I'm sorry, not Stadia, the Orion thing. So a B for really cool games, probably the games I'm most excited about coming out of this conference, but a lot of low lows as well.
And I guess After listening to you talk about it, I was gonna give it a B plus, but now I'll give it a B. I agree. There's a lot I like out of this, but were some really slow things, and I can't be super biased. But the games I saw were kind of great in the conference, and yeah, there's definitely some parts that they could have cut back on or kind of trimmed down that would have made it a lot better, possibly even an A. But right now, I'll probably give it a B.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of the thoughts of you guys. I give it a B as well. I think there's a lot of stuff that really excited me. I think it lagged quite a bit in certain sections, but I think overall I was pleasantly surprised, unlike with Microsoft. And I think my impressions of it are largely defined by the fact that it did come right after Microsoft. So I'll give it a B as well.
All right. Let's move on to Ubisoft, guys. Overall thoughts on Ubisoft?
Fine. I think spoilers ruined this. I think the leaks kind of leading up. I think Watch Dogs Legion being announced with nothing could have made this a really cool conference. But I think it was otherwise just kind of boring. It felt like it dragged on to me.
I think. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Larry.
This conference was the most disappointing to me. The Watch Dogs was cool. Other stuff was okay, but nothing really stood out. And for me, I feel like Ubisoft was like, all right, we're tired of everybody making fun of us for being weird, so we're just going to do a normal conference this year. But I need that weirdness. Like Ubisoft, like you stand out because of it, and we're laughing with you, not at. I mean, never mind. We're laughing at you, but we're talking about you for weeks, so for years sometimes. So like, don't do this boring thing again. Come out next year with crazy choreographed dances and force me to talk about you whether I want to or not.
I think that regardless of the leaks, Watch Dogs Legion is super impressive. Just theoretically. I mean, we don't know if they can actually pull off that ambition, but the idea of that game is super impressive to me. I think everything else, and this is largely because Ubisoft has essentially positioned themselves as a company that supports live service games for years on end. It means, and what that means is that each successive E3 yields diminishing returns for me. Like For Honor, Siege, there was another one that I can't remember, but like these games, they talk about updates every year, but just becomes less exciting for the mainstream audience. They brought out a cool dog, and John Bernthal. That was cool.
I like that guy.
I like that guy too. But I Breakpoint just doesn't. It's not for me. I just think Watch Dogs was like a hell of a way to lead that conference, and then everything after that was largely pretty disappointing to me. I like that they announced a new Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, a new Rainbow Six. But I think it was largely for me defined by the things they didn't announce, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys have said. It was a conference that I don't think got out of its own way in a lot of ways. Like, and Ubisoft, it's funny. I think Ubisoft suffers from a lot of the same things that Bethesda does, but maybe to an order of magnitude higher. But I don't feel the same way about Ubisoft's need to have an E3 press conference the same way I do about Bethesda. Like, I never think like, man, Ubisoft should take a year off from these, because I'm always at least entertained by what they show, and they always have a handful of games or a handful of things they talk about that get me really excited. But this was the first year that I was like, man, do they really need to be here? Like, if there's not a new Assassin's Creed to talk about, if there's not a new, Division to talk about, like, is there really a need for one of these conferences? Because we got a deep dive into Breakpoint a couple weeks ago. They did a 30-minute stream on it. Like, and they didn't really tell us anything new outside of beta access for the game coming. And then that John Bernthal has a really cool dog. And so, and then like the Brawlhalla stuff, the Tom Clancy Elite Squad mobile game that they announced, like, don't really move the needle. Just Dance 2020 again coming out for the Wii. the For Honor thing is crazy to me too, because even with that, I thought that like an announcement about a sequel would do more than a new event.
Another event, yeah.
You know, again, like, are you talking to the audience that you have or the audience that you want? And I think when you start to just talk to the audience that you have, it's probably time to move on from that in the E3 universe, right? So, okay, let's talk specific game announcements. Let's start with Watch Dogs, because I think. Let me give my thoughts on it first, then I'm going to step away to grab a drink real quick. I am very excited about the potential for Watch Dogs. I thought the way that they revealed it was also very self-aware, because the criticism of the first one, right, is that Aiden is like a shitty character. He's like one note, and he's not super interesting, and he's got kind of this shoehorn revenge story. And the character that they open on is this really just like crass kind of typical who you would expect to be the star of a game like this kind of guy. And it's, if you don't know what they're about to reveal from the leaks that come out, I think it's a lot more impactful of you're like, oh shit, this main character sucks. I can already tell he sucks. And then he gets fucking yeeted in the trailer for it. Like, he gets killed in the middle of it, and they're like, no, you can play as hacker Granny. Like, that was cool to me. And I love when games are really just self-aware of their own history, and that came across in this trailer very much to me. I am concerned about the execution of it because I think it's such a broad concept. And Cody, you mentioned this in our Discord, and it was the same concern I had when watching it, of just like, how do you voice act for this? How do you account for the fact that there's literally 100 different NPCs I can go do this one mission with? Like, you say I can play as any NPC throughout this game, I can recruit any character to join, but there's got to be guardrails around that to keep me from breaking it. And what do those guardrails look like? I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that could happen, but I feel like that's only going to happen to people that are trying to break it. I feel like on a normal playthrough, that's not going to happen. There's going to be people that try to literally recruit every single person they run into and try to break the game and find repeating voices and stuff like that. But for the average person that's going to go through, do a handful of agents, do a couple more than they need and all that kind of stuff, and play through and enjoy the story, I don't feel like that's going to be an issue. It's really only going to run into the people that are trying to break the game.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical about it because it is so ambitious of an idea. The worry I have is, even if it is executed well, how you tell a story with this system. I think the focus of the story becomes a story of everybody rising up to defeat this authoritarian, or try to defeat this authoritarian regime. But I feel like the narrative out of necessity becomes more diffuse because of that and less focused. But I think it might just be what I see of a lot in this game is Hitman, the Ubisoft more recent Hitman, where it can be absolutely ridiculous and absolutely fun, because you're just trying to bend the system to have as much fun as you can. Like, I am 100% going to play this game and just create an entire elite grandma squad of hackers because I can. And I think that's the appeal of this game. I actually really liked Watch Dogs 2. I liked the character. I liked the story it told because it was more focused, and I actually liked the main character. The fact that this game is I liked that during the presentation they led with Brexit, like a post-Brexit London, and they're legitimately trying to say something. Based on the comments, it doesn't seem like it's something entirely original or entirely deep, but they're at least trying to say something. And for Ubisoft, that's refreshing. So I am hesitantly excited for this game and incredibly interested by it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about it. I get the concerns that the narrative may not be quite as engaging, but I think there is room for, as you're learning these characters' backstories and motivations, there is room to tell a lot of smaller scale stories, and that could be done well and it could not be. We'll just have to see. But I am also with you on. I just don't believe that you can turn every NPC. It doesn't make sense to me. And the last time someone told me that something that didn't make sense to me is when the Destiny maker said, "See that mountain over there? You can go to that mountain." And I'm like, all right, this is Watch Dogs mountain moment. You can't really go to that mountain. But maybe they'll surprise me. We'll see.
From the storytelling side of it, Cody, back to your point, I have that same hesitancy. Like, how do you tell a cohesive story in this way? But I also am excited about it because the story becomes about the conflict and not about any individual character. And I think that what we talk about in like the games as services world is it's so hard to tell a compelling story about a shared world where everybody is a guardian, where everybody is a division agent, because it ultimately has to boil down to like, you're the one, like you're the savior, you're the hero of the story. And how this story is executed, possibly being able to inform how we tell a story more about a conflict rather than a focal character, I think it will be cool. But I don't think the storytelling has ever been incredibly strong in Watch Dogs, so I'm not sure that that's going to be possible. But I think it is a unique approach that's at least going to be worth watching how it's done.
Yeah, that idea, I think focusing on conflict can be interesting, but you still need to be able to invest in character. The idea of like it being about the Legion, it being about the cohesive whole as opposed to the individuals is kind of interesting. It could be a cool statement made through gameplay as opposed to through narrative.
Yeah.
I think if it's done well, it actually produces a game with a lot of replayability. Like, I would love to see that you can get deep in this game and fail. And everyone's wiped out. Time to start over. Like, and maybe I'm the only one, but for me, that would be a blast. Or maybe not outright fail and you have to start over, but maybe they've wiped out your cell and the government regains some ground that you had taken from them, and then you've got to try again from another angle with new characters.
Yeah. And the unique angle of just having the added investment of with the permadeath thing, I think is really cool. That like, oh man, I really love using this character, but I don't want them to die in this really hard mission, so I'm not going to use them. Like, because I'm not one of those guys who's like, all right, going to create a save point here in case this doesn't go my way. So that'll add a cool little wrinkle that we haven't seen in a game like this ever.
There are also some funny details in the trailer. Like there was one guy, he looked at him and profiled them, and it said "can die randomly."
Yeah.
So there are like cool little details like that in terms of who you're hiring. I mean, we can all die randomly, but in the game it's different.
All right, what other games or announcements from this do we want to touch on?
I'm good.
Yeah, there's really nothing.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either. Yeah, no Splinter Cell. We saw Sam Fisher. Wasn't what we wanted.
We saw him
Little
twice.
Tease. Yeah, we saw him twice. We had a tease of where the Division 2 is going. Apparently, we're going back to New York, which was a really interesting choice. And I'm curious to see how that plays. I'm a big Division 2 guy, so I'll be curious to see how that goes, but not much else besides that for me either, no.
Yeah. All right, there's a couple things I want to touch on. Tom Selleck's going to be in the next Rainbow Six Siege expansion or season. The new character just looks like Tom Selleck. It's not actually Tom Selleck.
Oh, yeah.
The Mythic Quest, the Rob McElhaney show.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
It's going to be Silicon Valley, but with gamers.
Except it's on Apple TV Plus and nobody's going to watch it. So there's that.
I can stream it illegally.
But guys, this was... This is a riff on Jason Vandenberg, the creator of For Honor, right? All the rings, the beard, the real intense voice as he's talking, the
hands.
Yeah, the hands. Like, Jason Vandenberg is somewhere fuming right now about the creation of this show. And the ego, the size of a city bus thing, I just thought it was funny. And I don't think enough people were talking about that connection. And how kind of assholeish it makes both Rob McElhaney and Ubisoft look. I did nail a prediction on this one, and when I say nail, I mean nailed a prediction on this one. I said Google Stadia will be on stage at Ubisoft conference. When they announce their EA Access style program, they will subsequently announce that it is coming to Stadia as well. So
Nailed it.
nailed it, baby. So 1 point for me there. And I want to have a probably deeper conversation about this on PvA Radio, but this move to all of these subscription services, Xbox Game Pass, EA Access, Origin Access, Uplay Plus, like, I think is something we should probably be a little more scared of for the future of gaming than we are right now. But I'll just leave that there. All right, well, let's go around the circle. Andrew, we'll start with you. What do you give this Ubisoft conference letter grade wise?
What did I give Microsoft? C plus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give this a C then.
All right, Larry.
I give it a D. Watch Dogs was awesome, and besides that, why were you there? That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm giving it a D as well for that very same reason.
I'll give it a C. I was really impressed by Watch Dogs.
That really saved it for me too. That was better than all VA play.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the redeeming, the shining light in this absolute waste of time.
All right. Well, if you're not a Final Fantasy fan, let's talk about this other waste of time, the Square Enix conference.
Holy shit. I did not realize how many Final Fantasy games they have. Like, when people told me it's a Final Fantasy presentation, I didn't think they literally meant it was going to be 45 minutes of Final Fantasy. I was blown away. Because I just think, there's no way they can have a 7th Final Fantasy. They'd bring out 9. Like, it's just ridiculous.
I think I told this before we went live, so I'll tell it again. My wife is not a gamer, but she loves watching E3 with me. And so she walked out. She had was making some cookies and walked back in the middle of the conference. She says, "Wait, is this another Final Fantasy game?" I was like, "Yes." And we just shared a big laugh every time there was a new Final Fantasy game announced. And I wanted to see if I could list all of the ones that were in the making, but I don't think I can. There was literally, I would say, a double-digit number of Final Fantasy trailers that were shown.
Yes.
So I think that this was definitely a conference with an audience in mind, and I don't really think any of us are the audience that they had in mind.
I only caught bits and pieces of this conference, but after it was over and I had the chance to read about it, it did not inspire me to go back and watch it in its entirety.
Yeah, everyone that is not a hardcore Final Fantasy fan, I think, was here for 3 reasons. One, Final Fantasy VII Remastered, which, yes, is a Final Fantasy game, but something a lot of people are hyped for. The Avengers Project. I felt like there's one more game in there. Wasn't there?
The Outriders thing.
Not even Outriders. Outriders looks really, really cool too. We didn't know about that coming, but I think for anyone that wasn't a Final Fantasy fan, really the 2 bright spots were the Avengers Project and Outriders. Which,
I don't know, man. When that guy came out and proudly was like, "We're the game makers behind Gears of War Judgment," and I was like, is that really the thing you want to lead with here, buddy? Because almost nobody liked Gears of War Judgment. That to me was like, okay, I don't know about this game.
it looks unique. Looks like it has potential. No gameplay, no idea what it is. Looks like some kind of third-person shooter. So it'll be curious to see where it ends up. But I'm interested in it, and I want to learn more, which is a good thing for sitting through 45 minutes of Final Fantasy.
All right, well, let's talk about what I assume we're going to want to settle in and talk about for a minute, and that's the Avengers game. What were your reactions to the trailer, to the announcements, the voice actors, all of it?
I think that the game is like out of the gates, the deck was stacked against them in a way that I didn't realize that it was, because I didn't expect everyone to expect that this game was going to be the movie likenesses and have the movie voice actors. Like, that's just unrealistic. But I guess that's on me for expecting people to have realistic expectations.
I don't think that's not what it's about. These look like the melted toy versions of the movie actors, and I'm fine. Just like, either make a version of the character that is completely distinct, that does not recall the movie film version at all, or just go commit to it and like make it look exactly like Robert Downey Jr., in which case you're bound to fail.
But
Like, I would prefer to have it be something different than lightly evocative of what we know and love already.
But how do you do that when these character likenesses, even in the casting of these characters, is based off of a long-standing tradition of what these heroes and characters are supposed to look like? Like,
Well,
Robert Downey Jr. wasn't selected because he was vastly different from how Tony Stark is represented in other Iron Man media. He was selected because, oh, that's a really good real life embodiment of who Tony Stark would be. Like, how do you stray away from that point without being like completely dismissive of the legacy of the character that you're trying to portray?
I think there are different interpretations of these characters, even in the comics.
See,
they might look the same, but they exist in a different. They act differently. I don't know. I like, especially with. I just think not the Mark Ruffalo. See, I'm already making a mistake. The Bruce Banner thing is just absurd. Like, I don't understand. Like, why is he wearing the exact same outfit as Mark Ruffalo in Avengers Infinity War?
I agree that yes, they're in a hard situation, but like, it literally looks as if they took a picture of the 4 actors from the current movie, made 3 random face changes, and put them on the characters. Like, they were very, very similar, and the voice actors that they have are fantastic. This is the best of the best you can get. Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, Nolan North, and Troy Baker. You can't get 4 better voice actors, and I love all 4 of them. I think all 4 of them will do really good jobs. There's a 5th one. I forgot who the Captain America guy was already.
Sheen.
Captain America's dead in this universe, apparently, anyways. But but yeah, it was going to be hard for them to really come out and blow people away. But I definitely think they could have differentiated, because even looking at how the characters' like costume design look exactly like the Avengers now. And yes, it's all based off the comics, but when something is as big as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you need to make changes to avoid that. Even if it's going against the comics, you know you're going to be setting yourself up to fail if you do go off of that.
I just could not disagree more. And I even Googled the pictures of the people to make sure I'm not crazy. I just don't see the similarity. Like, to me, it looks like they just went their own way with it. Yeah, like, especially Mark Ruffalo. That, I just don't think that guy looks.
You're calling him Mark Ruffalo. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the actor I Googled for sure.
He's saying he looked at a picture of Mark Ruffalo.
I'm not saying he looks like Mark Ruffalo. I'm saying he's dressed like Mark Ruffalo.
I mean, have you watched the Incredible Hulk TV series?
Yeah,
like
but I think like you could literally put
shirt,
Bruce Banner in anything. That is the exact outfit he wears in Infinity War.
Larry looks contemplatively.
Put Bruce Banner in whatever. Put him in a jeans and t-shirt. I don't care.
It's coming off anyway.
Yeah. Who gives a shit?
It's like putting clothes on Luke.
Ultimately, if they tell a good story here and the gameplay's fun, no one's going to care about the characters half an hour into the game. At first, people are going to look at them. These are weird. I don't know what these are. But if the gameplay's catchy and they're telling a good story, no one's going to care about this. It's going to brush over so quickly. Because, yes, it still looks good. And if the gameplay is rewarding, I think that'll be such a thing that we're looking at, because we only saw cinematic trailers here. Maybe if we saw gameplay and saw what this is going to be, we wouldn't be talking about that. We're talking about how cool this game's going to be, but now we're analyzing the pictures and videos of the characters
because that's all they
instead of
gave
talking
us.
about exactly, which they kind of set themselves up for failure. They needed to give us something else to talk about besides just what the characters look like.
Look, guys, let's say Larry's out grocery shopping, right? And he gets assaulted in the middle of an aisle. And a police officer brings him into the station every single day for 10 years and shows him the exact same 5 people lined up in this lineup to figure out who the assailant is. And then finally, one day, 10 years later, he marches 5 different people in front of them who are kind of still based off of those people, but they're still different people. It doesn't matter who those people are. It's going to be jarring. And I'm with you, Larry. Like, I don't think it was something that we accounted for when talking about this game. It doesn't matter if they would have went some totally different route or if they'd have made characters that looked exactly like the people from the MCU. Like, there was always going to be a disconnect in it where people were going to feel like either A, they tried to play it too close to what has existed, or, oh man, I'm used to seeing Robert Downey Jr. be Tony Stark. It's really jarring to see somebody totally different. Like, it was a problem that was bound to happen either way. And I don't think just showing gameplay would have been the thing that changed the narrative around it. People were always going to be to look at these characters and think, that's a strange take on them because they've just been used to looking at the same thing for 10 years.
No, I agree with you. That was going to be an issue no matter what. But that's now the only issue. We don't have another side. It's like, yes, these characters aren't what we wanted or thought they're going to be. And that's the only conversation. But it could have been, oh, but the gameplay looks really good. It looks like it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of characters. We know what this game is going to be. Like, I'm not saying that wasn't going to be an issue. That was going to be an issue no matter what. But they could have at least turned the conversation around into a positive side as well, which right now they didn't really give us a chance to.
Mm-hmm. If you can send me the timestamp of Mark Ruffalo wearing that outfit in Infinity War, I'll buy you a milkshake.
Okay. Also, I'm going to be honest. This is like the least concerning thing for me from this E3 footage. I ultimately don't care what they look like, but I do think it's worth looking at the Spider-Man game that literally came out last year. Granted, they have the additional luxury of not really having to show what he looks like under the mask. They do, like, you play as Peter Parker in portions of that game, and he just looks like a generic white dude. But the Spider-Man suit is different enough from what we know, and it's unique enough that it even got a little shout out in the Into the Spider-Verse movie. And it's like a cool interpretation of the suit and the character. And I'm sure there are going to be cosmetic suits in this game. So ultimately, it doesn't even really matter because you're going to be able to make them look like whatever you want. But I do think the fact that they didn't show anything gameplay-wise makes this the only point of conversation.
I would argue 2 things about the Spider-Man thing, though. Number one, the MCU Spider-Man was relatively new compared to other characters in the MCU by the time the Spider-Man game came out, because he didn't show up until Civil War, right?
Yeah, but I think that we're aware of the Black Spider.
Well,
that is a thing.
My second thing is that in our lifetimes, we've seen 45 different interpretations of Spider-Man across different media too. Like, the joke has always been that it's a different Spider-Man universe every 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so I do think that's a little different than us looking at these same characters in the same universe for 10 years. But
perhaps I think there was a point of conversation around when they announced that suit that it's radically different. Mm-hmm. That may have only been hardcore fans. I do remember that being a point of contention, but that quickly went away when people saw that it played well, first of all, and also they were capturing the essence of the character regardless. Mm-hmm. So I do think they'll still end up capturing who these characters are. It'll be their version of those characters. They'll just kind of look a little funny, which is fine. Like, if the chemistry between the cast and the dialogue is great, I'm gonna ultimately overlook what the characters look like.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Well, and then the other thing that they did show that got me excited was the scene between Nolan North and Troy Baker, between Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. That, like, just reminds you how talented those voice actors are, and that even in that 30-second snippet that they showed us, like they really they embodied those characters in really well. And to know that we're going to be able to look forward to, a 15-20 hour campaign of seeing those actors portraying those characters. I wish they'd have shown something with the whole ensemble interacting, and I think that would have been cool, especially as big a deal as they made about look at these 5 actors. But just that little glimpse got me excited about the story portion of it. So
I don't know if that's going to be what it is.
If it's going to be story focused,
I think it'll be story focused, but the multiplayer aspect of it confuses me.
Yeah, and with the additional characters coming in too, like the Hank.
I just don't. Again, I don't know what this game is. Them showing it off on the E3 floor makes me question why they didn't show off at least something on stage. I just don't know what this game is, and I think I would have preferred that than re-explaining to me who these characters are for 10 minutes, which they did. They came on stage and just explained who these 5 people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I think they really needed gameplay with this game. We had to know what this was.
And we've been waiting for it for so long. I mean, we've been waiting for this announcement. We thought it was going to be announced last year too. So it's been in development for a while. They even announced coming ahead of time that we were going to see it on stage. I think the hype was built up for this game. I think a lot of people watched the entire Final Fantasy conference for this moment. And I think not showing gameplay was really something that hurt them here.
So I listened to, or maybe I read this, that it was like they should have opened with Avengers and then ended on Final Fantasy Remake and then revealed Final Fantasy 8 right at the very end, the remaster of 8. And like that would have been a better way to kind of format this conference, because the stuff that they have for the Final Fantasy 7 Remake is way more fleshed out than what they've got for the Avengers. This is another game that is not making this the date that they announced. I don't think so at all, at least. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I hope it does.
No, I agree.
I am so excited for this game now. I had never really been interested in Final Fantasy before. I saw this trailer, I watched every minute of this gameplay, eyes glued to the screen, and I am beyond excited for this game. This game was my number 2 for my game of the show.
All right. Well, let's rate the Square conference. I know we didn't touch on most of the games, but it's because none of us are really Final Fantasy fans. So how did you feel about it? Cody, let's start with you.
This is probably my least. This is probably the conference I would rank the lowest. So I'll give it. I'll admit it doesn't. Most of the content did not appeal to me. But even considering that, a large majority of it was remasters and remakes. So I'll give it like a D, because also the Avengers stuff that I was super excited for was somewhat of a disappointment as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a C, because I think that the Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff, that is not a game I was interested in before, but now I think just kind of the sum of all the trailers that I've watched, and then the gameplay for that did look really, really fun to me. I thought that it was a cool evolution of the turn-based that we're used to seeing in Final Fantasy games, and that change alone is enough to get me interested in possibly trying out Final Fantasy VII Remake. So and then I think the cast for the Avengers is going to be cool to see. I think because they made such a big deal out of it, there is going to be at least some aspect of story to lean on that will be something for me to at least get excited about. So yeah, and then, but yeah, the middle of it, I'm going to alter it. I'm going to say C-. Larry.
I throw it at a D as well. I've never seen a conference so focused on one game, and I get that Final Fantasy isn't one game. I get that, but like just imagine if Microsoft conference one year had been Master Chief Collection comes out, and let's just have trailers for every single remake of this game that's included on the disc. I know that's not a 1-to-1 correlation, but
well, but then if they were like, all right, let's watch the Halo Wars trailer now, and let's watch this Halo mobile game trailer, and let's watch, it would have been Like, oh man, Microsoft's one note. All they got is Halo.
Yeah, that's how. I'm
But
coming
no,
away
and
from
the
this.
only difference is now they're 2 notes because now they have Halo and Gears. But
With Avengers, yeah.
No,
And,
no, but I mean Microsoft still only has 2 notes. Larry, you have something to say before I give my impression?
yeah. And then the Avengers stuff does, like, although I still hotly contest that these are similar character designs.
It was Age of Ultron.
I don't think this is enough of a. They needed to show us more, and it's their fault that this is dominating the discussion. So D.
So wait, Cody, are you admitting that you cannot find in the original movie that you mentioned a screenshot of Bruce Banner wearing that outfit because it's in Age of Ultron?
Yes.
All right, so you owe Larry a milkshake.
I mean, he didn't bet me a milkshake. I didn't say bet.
No, he would just give me a milkshake.
Oh, okay. So Larry's off the hook.
Yeah.
He'll drink my milkshake.
For me, this you cut out 15 minutes in the middle here of like 3 Final Fantasy games and give a little bit more in Avengers. This could have been really good for me, and I still found this much more enjoyable than the Microsoft conference. I give this a C+. I give it the same tier because of the drag in the middle. But when I was engaged in Dragon Quest Builders 2, Final Fantasy,
Holy shit! How were you engaged in that Dragon Age Builders 2 trailer? That trailer.
Okay, it went long, but I'm so excited for that game.
Holy shit. I think that they took a page out of the Smash Brothers Ultimate book for that Dragon Age Builders 2 trailer. That was. You can give me 5,000 words to describe that trailer, and we still won't get engaging on that list.
I loved it. I admit it went long, but I loved it. So I still give it a C+, the same tier as Microsoft. But there's like 2 things they could have easily changed, and it would have been a B+.
All right. Let's move on to Nintendo, guys. I know this show is going hella long, so I apologize. But I warned you up top to have your seatbelts ready. So let's talk about Nintendo. I'm going to be honest. I had to watch this in like spurts, and so I didn't get a real sense of the flow of the whole thing. But let's just open it up. General impressions for Nintendo.
Took the show. Conference of the show by far. They did exactly what Microsoft was supposed to do on Sunday. They did it on Tuesday morning. They are the talk of the show. They had every single thing, almost every single game they put out hit to someone exactly. A lot of people had a lot of games coming out of there. I walked out of that conference with 8 games I plan on buying. So I think it was fantastic, and they did everything they needed to in that direct.
I was at work when this conference aired, and I've been at work since then for most of my waking hours. So I actually have not watched enough of this conference to really fairly grade it. So I will have to abstain from that.
This is also my favorite conference, or the one I would grade the highest. Granted, I think that is by default. But I also think it was a good conference, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that Nintendo was able to announce games for hardware it currently has out. It's able to announce ports and remasters on a platform that people like just by virtue of the actual, like, what it offers, which is a mixture of portability and home play. And I think a lot of the ports they announced were interesting. A lot of the new games they announced that we know when they're coming out are super interesting. If not for me, then I know for a lot of people, like Animal Crossing and Pokemon. Yeah, people are pumped as hell for that. And then the tag at the end was incredible. And I don't think something we saw coming as quickly, but it makes sense. And so that gives us something to look forward to even farther down the line with a sequel to Breath of the Wild. So I thought it was a great conference.
Yeah, the beats that I saw of it were really good. I got to see the end of it. I thought, I've never played a Luigi's Mansion game, but that trailer made me want to play a Luigi's Mansion game. They do such a great job of just like that was how you focus on mechanics. Like they touched on a couple different things that were like, here are things that make this game unique and made it look really fun to play, as opposed to what they did last year and like, here's every single mechanic that's available. And
But now, how am I going to know what the rest of the buttons do?
there's no book left in the box when you buy a game, so we have to use E3 to tell you. But let's see, what were some of the other things? The Witcher 3 coming to Switch is really cool to me. Link's Awakening getting an official release date was cool. And with that being so close, go ahead.
Real quick, with The Witcher 3 in mind, the sizzle really, and pleasantly surprised to see a lot of really grown up titles in the mix there.
Yeah,
that made me really happy.
Yeah. A new Fire Emblem game was announced. Like, and again, I'm not talking about
announced. Three Houses.
Yeah,
That was already announced before. That we just got the release date.
Oh, it was a gameplay. The gameplay was revealed. That's right. Sorry.
Gameplay reveal, date reveal, but that has been around for a while, and that comes out in July. It's super soon.
So is Astral Chain the Platinum Games game that they were like, we're working on something that's never been done before?
Of the year as well.
No, that's not the one that they're saying is completely groundbreaking. It's another one they're working on.
Okay, all right. Because I was reading this description and I was like, wait a minute.
It does look really cool though.
It looks like an adult version of Pokemon. You pretty much capture monsters, then use them to fight each other. I did not pick up on the first trailer, but this game looks super cool. It looks really good, and I cannot wait for it.
But to Larry's point about some of the third parties, they had Alien Isolation, Dauntless, the Hollow Knight stuff, Dead by Daylight stuff. Yeah, Spyro, all kinds of stuff. And Nintendo gets a lift constantly from just like, hey, here's a game that you're like somewhat interested in on PlayStation, but here it is on Switch where you can take it with you anywhere, and you're like, oh hell yeah. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to speak too much about my overall impressions of this just because I didn't get to watch it all the way through. So what are some specific games you guys wanted to touch on for? You said you had 8 games you were going to buy, Andrew?
Yeah, let me pull up my list.
I am most hype about an Animal Crossing. Like,
Larry loves Animal Crossing.
Sad that it's still so far out. Like, that was really disappointing to me.
Yeah, that they finally announced that it was getting pushed back, and I think a lot of people saw that coming, but that was sad. Super.
You want that Tom Nook?
50,000 bells in debt. He runs a good business.
It's true.
You got that list up?
Yeah, looking for me. So, Luigi's Mansion, Witcher 3, Link's Awakening, Fire Emblem's 3 Heroes, Astral Chains, Ultimate Alliance, the Marvel game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if any saw that. I played both of those growing up, so I was super excited for that. Animal Crossings, and then the Cadence of Hyrule. That is a mix. Yeah. I don't know what the first game is, but it's a mix between Legend of Zelda and some other
Crypt
game.
of the Necromancer.
Yeah,
it's
I've
like
never played
rhythm,
that game before.
It's like a rhythm-based adventure combat. It's strange, but it's cool.
Yeah, it looked really good. The gameplay looked beautiful. It was in the original Zelda style. So those were the 8 that came out of, without including Pokemon and such, from the conference.
Did you recently raid somebody who was playing that game, Luke? Crypt of the Necromancer?
I don't believe so. You may be thinking Enter the Gungeon. I think we rated somebody who was playing Enter the Gungeon.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Which is a different game. So
I'd add to the list. I'd add to the list. They showed Ni no Kuni is coming to the Switch. I never got to play that, but it's a game I've wanted to play for a while. So that's another one that gets kind of that Nintendo boost of portability.
Mm-hmm.
I think Spyro will do amazing. I know Luke already mentioned, but I think Spyro on a Switch would hit a whole new generation of people that have never played it. And if it's at like kind of those cheaper price points, $30, something like that, I think that'd do a killing on Switch.
Hollow Knight will be cool. I love Hollow Knight. And then the Doom Eternal and Young Blood coming. I think we kind of figured that those would be, knowing that Bethesda's been releasing a lot of those games on Switch. But it's cool again to see more adult games coming to Switch as well.
And it's cool to see adult games that are like new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like I said, I haven't watched the whole thing yet. Did they talk about game streaming at all? because I feel like that's really disappointing, because I feel like if there's one platform that stands to really benefit from that, it's the Switch.
Yeah. All right.
But I guess the last thing that we haven't touched on would be the Smash characters have been announced. So obviously the lesser and the kind of the more predictable one is a Dragon Hero, the Dragon Quest fighters. There's 4 of them that are assuming all going to be alternates, Shadow Fight, Echo Fighter, something like that. And then the one we kind of teased in my prediction from earlier, which I don't know how much you guys want to talk about that, but Banjo-Kazooie, the first ever Western character for a Smash character for a Smash game has been announced, and that is ridiculous to me, especially coming from Microsoft.
Yeah, it's just a testament to the relationship that's been brokered between those two companies. I think it's cool to see, and I think it's not the last that we're going to see either.
It's the one that makes the most sense too. Just given the maturity level, I guess.
Come on, Minecraft Steve would have been a perfect fit.
But I think people who play Smash, Banjo-Kazooie holds a special place in a lot of people's heart. It's from that same era. It was on N64. I played it on N64.
And if for no other reason that people have been predicting that he's going to be in Smash for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's been forever.
And the reveal was funny. It was a troll move.
I loved the fake out. The only thing that would have made the fake out better was if they didn't use Banjo and they'd picked somebody else.
Waluigi.
All right. Well, Andrew and Cody, I'm just going to let you guys grade this since you guys actually watched it all the way through, and I don't feel comfortable giving a grade. So, Andrew, what do you give it?
Easily the best of the show. Great pacing. So many great games coming out of it. Started strong, ended strong. Couldn't have gave it a better grade. I don't know what could have made this better conference, but I don't think it was a perfect score. But it's like a 9.5 out of 10 on a number scale, or an A plus, A.5. Not quite a plus, but damn close.
All right.
I give it a B plus. I think relative to the others, it was great. I think they have a slew of games that are ports that are coming that I'm super excited about. It'll give me a chance to finally play some. The only reason I'm giving it a B plus is honestly just because a lot of the massive games they have coming up that I know a lot of people are excited just aren't in my wheelhouse. I haven't played Pokemon in forever, and I've never been into Animal Crossing because I know that it'll capitalize on my entire life. But I think the tag at the end with the Zelda sequel is awesome. I wasn't as jazzed about Breath of the Wild as most people, but I still really liked it. And it drops a lot of interesting hints about the direction that game could go. So I think it's the best conference that I saw. It's the most solid. I think it never really flagged that much in terms of pacing. There are a couple awkward moments, but that's Nintendo in general. So I had a really great time watching. I think there's a lot to look forward to for Switch, and I think the fact that they can announce stuff for hardware that's currently out gives them an advantage. They don't have to delay to another E3 or another Direct. They can just come out and say it because people already have it out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on to our end of show awards, I want to touch on the rest of these predictions that we didn't get to. Cody did predict that Nintendo will officially reveal a Switch port for a massive open world game we didn't think could run on the Switch, and he put The Witcher 3, so full point for him on that one. Andrew said Persona 5 is finally announced for the Switch and the Nintendo Direct, and it has some kind of Persona based off of a Nintendo character. That did not come to fruition. Let's see. He also said, and he didn't mention this specifically for Nintendo, but that there was a Harry Potter RPG would finally officially be announced and given a release date. We did not see that at the conference.
I thought that one was in the bag, man.
I want it to be so bad.
He also said that N64 games are going to be coming to Nintendo Switch Online. That did not happen either. Yo, what's up, TSM? Welcome to the stream. And then, let's see, were there any... I have that Sony will host a State of Play conference Thursday where they will announce the roadmap for the rest of this console generation and tease Horizon Zero Dawn 2. It is still Wednesday, guys. There's still 24 hours. It's not happening. True. It's not going to happen. And then Larry had Dead Island 2 with a course correction and seriousness. We did not see Dead Island 2 at this conference. So our point totals, Larry has 1.5 points. I have 1.25 points. Andrew has 0.83 repeating, of course. And Cody wins the E3 predictions with 2.5 points. Cody, he wins the milkshake bet. Boys and girls, applause all around.
The milkshake that Larry wasn't going to give me.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, let's get to our end of the show awards, guys, and we'll make these quick hitters. So, what was the best conference, in your opinion, Larry? Let's start with you.
Well, this is going to shock you, but I thought it was Bethesda, both in terms of they bounced back from a pretty awful year well, with humility, with grace, and also just they offered a lot of exciting games. There's a lot of their stuff that I'm looking forward to playing.
All right, Andrew.
I already said it, but Nintendo by far. Great games, great pacing, big surprises, did everything right.
All right. Codsworth.
I said as well. I think Nintendo, but I think Bethesda is close behind them.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's Bethesda. Games I'm really excited about, some of the best surprises that we saw in the conference as well. And I think despite Orion being a weird thing, to know that Bethesda's all in on the streaming side of things is a good place to be as well. All right, Andrew, what was the best surprise?
Keanu Reeves?
Keanu?
I don't know. There wasn't any big surprises. I think actually it'd probably be Bethesda revealing 2 new IPs and me being incredibly in on both of them would probably be my biggest surprise. I know Cecile with 2, but Bethesda blew me out of the water with what they're going to represent in terms of games, and they did.
If you're hearing squeaking, I believe Andrew's dog is playing with a toy behind him. All right, Cody, what was your biggest surprise?
No, 100% Keanu. So there was a moment in the trailer at the end where Keanu's character, who, by the way, we didn't mention, his name is Johnny Silverhand.
Who is from the board game.
He's from the tabletop RPG. But his character speaks and then slowly lowers himself, looks you in the eye, takes off his sunglasses. Reverse meme. The moment his character spoke, I knew who it was, and that leading to the subsequent reveal of him panning down and taking off his sunglasses, to the subsequent reveal of him coming out on stage and all the joy that ensued was surprising to me. I'm gonna be honest, it was a bit much for me. Couldn't really handle it
from like a sexual standpoint.
I'm fondly remembering it now, and it's giving me warm, fuzzy feelings all over. So it's definitely my surprise of the show.
Mine is definitely the 2 new Bethesda IP that both just looked incredibly good. So, all right, Larry, what was your biggest surprise?
Also, Keanu. It was a good moment. I love that guy. Glad to see him.
All right, Cody, your trailer of the show.
Probably Deathloop. I think it does a really good job of kind of outlining the idea, really concretely giving you an idea of how the game plays. Drops a few hints as to what you can expect from the game, and just has a hell of a lot of style behind it too. It just got me pumped for that game.
All right, mine is the Ghostwire Tokyo. I love the atmosphere, the cinematography, and the fact that I think it revealed just enough about the world to get me really interested in it. Larry.
I am also in Ghostwire Tokyo. It looked like a fun blend of spooky and also action-packed, and an interesting. It looks to me like we're gonna have a clash between like old spiritual beliefs and modernity, and I may be reading a bit much into that trailer, but that I like those kinds of ideas.
And they said the word cult. I'm all in on any game with cults in it.
I've been in several cults. Some as a follower, some as a leader.
Oh God! Don't say that out there.
But you make more money as a leader.
It's a quote from The Office.
Yeah.
Larry's not in a cult.
No, I know.
Andrew, what was your trailer of the show?
For me, it's gonna be bad. I don't remember the exact name because I just kind of caught part of it. But it's actually no. Okay, so I know what the series is.
It's called Gears 5.
But it's the pop
actually,
one.
it's actually from the Kind of Funny Showcase, and it's going to be Stronghold Warband is what I believe it's called. Stronghold is an RTS series that kind of got me into the genre and one of the earliest games I ever remember being obsessed with. So a new one of those coming out blew me away. So I'm just super excited because I've been looking for an RTS for 4 or 5 years now.
All right, awesome. Let's go on to most awkward moment of E3. No E3 is complete without them. Who wants to go first? I don't know if you guys have had time to
Your
think.
mic's cutting out from me, so I'm not hearing any of that.
Oh, you guys didn't hear any of that? Can you hear me now?
Most awkward moment, and then you cut out.
Okay.
No, I hear you.
Most awkward moment. No E3 is complete without them. So I'll just open this up to whoever wants to go.
I'm gonna need a minute.
All right, well, I'll go. The PC gaming show, the Baldur's Gate guys came out and were talking. And so the way that they did their show was they had like a catwalk almost that people would come out on. And one of the hosts would interview the creators of these games. It was a really cool setup. I enjoyed watching the PC gaming show, actually. It's probably in the top 3 best shows of E3. But the way that it worked is they would bring them out and they'd interview the guys, and then they'd roll a trailer while the stage cleared. Well, the Baldur's Gate guys come out and they do their interview, and then when they're wrapping it up, the guy's like talking and about to like say something to them, but they have already walked off stage. And so the host is like, well, why are they leaving? I guess it's because of this trailer that's about to play. And he played it off really well, but it was just awkward and hilarious, just classic when you get developers on stage who don't know how to handle the stage presence.
I don't know why I had to think about it. The clear answer is the Double Fine Games. We're
Tim
excited
Schafer.
to come to Microsoft and work on Halo and Forza and these great IP. Haha, guy, we're glad to have you, but you don't have to work on those games. Shoo, that's a relief. I truly did not want to do that. I wanted to die the whole time.
All right, Cody, do you have an awkward moment you wanted to highlight here?
I was going to do the Tim Schafer thing too, but just for the sake of varying it up. Anytime the guy in the Bethesda crowd yelled at the guy who was talking about Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because he did not know how to handle it. I think a lot of people handled it. He did not, and he just got railroaded every time he tried to make a point.
Yeah.
I
They should have kicked that dude out.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just awkward for everybody involved.
All right, Andrew, did you have another one, or is that yours?
It was kind of that one too, and I felt like it was really weird. Every time someone came out on Bethesda, they gave like an awkward chuckle before they started talking. It was just really weird. The
I noticed
entire
that
time,
too.
They'd walk out, they're like, "Oh, I'm being cheered for." They'd do like an awkward chuckle and then go into the conversation. So that was the one thing that was weird to me.
All right, what is your meme of the show? Meme of the show.
It's spooky.
I would die for her in a heartbeat.
Whatever that means.
It's probably either Keanu yelling "You're all breathtaking" at a crowd of people, or Keanu. What has become my favorite is Keanu dramatically pointing at the screen, and then people inserting different clips onto the screen.
Some of them have been so good.
Yeah.
I do like the Keanu replacing the Drake format. I'm into that meme as well.
There was also a great image of Keanu pointing at the crowd, and then someone just put a side-by-side image of the dog that was next to John Bernthal, making the inevitable John Wick connection.
Oh, man. All right. Well, guys, that was E3. Any parting thoughts on E3 before we wrap the show up?
Goes so by. It's Riz like Christmas. Comes fast, leaves fast.
It's true.
Last year, we talked about whether E3 was still a necessity in the current gaming landscape. And this year didn't make me any more confident that it is. Mm-hmm. There were some cool things, but there were also a lot of things where I'm like, that could have been shorter. You maybe didn't need to be there. Yeah. So I hope next year's better, and less leaks would go a long way toward making that happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is all throat clearing for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my only real parting thought. Also, early 2020 is going to be fucking insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Sony made the right call not to show up. You're right that we are all holding off for the next generation of consoles, and Nintendo took advantage of that. And yeah, fuck you if you go to one of these things and you yell at the people who are presenting because you want your little 5 seconds in the sun. So those are my takeaways, guys. We're gonna wrap it up though because the show has almost gone 3 hours and I'm ready to go to bed. So we're gonna go around the horn. Who are you? Where can people find you? What are you gonna be tweeting about this week, Larry? Let's start with you.
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at LairHuntsZombies, LARHUNTS Zombies, and all of my tweets will be dedicated to fighting the war that these characters are not based off of the MCU characters.
Please.
All right, Codstone.
My name is Cody /Codstone /Codsworth /Coddleston. I'm Pro Electioneer on Twitter, and this week I'm just going to be retweeting out every great Keanu E3 meme or GIF that I find.
All right. My name is Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at Hoagie_OW. And this week, I have no idea what I'm going to be tweeting about, guys. Probably just my E3 2020 predictions. So, and then Andrew, who are you? Where can people find you? What are you going to be tweeting about this week?
Again, my name is Andrew Nimsgern. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Nimsgern, Andrew NIMSGERN. This week, I'm going to be tweeting Luke every single thing I would die for and get him to understand exactly what that meme means. Outside of that, you can find me doing all kinds of awesome content on twitch.tv/pop_off. Go to popoff.com, where we actually just put up an article about our thoughts about the E3 yellers. So do check that out.
Oh, nice.
We do a lot of awesome stuff, so go check that out for us as well. But again, thank you guys for allowing me to come on. It was a really great time having on for this, being on for last week, and have you guys on our live streams.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Your crew has definitely become true friends of PvA Radio, along with Phil Spencer. So Phil Spencer is also a friend of the show. So guys, this is
finally
PvA.
brought us Battletoads.
Finally, guys, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time, where we each bring one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week to the table, then have an in-depth discussion about them. Consider it your collaborative audio feature, article, or CAFA, if you will. And Cody, what do we want people to do with that? Tattoo it to your forehead.
Yell
I think he froze.
I cut out there for a second.
That's all right. If you can't catch us live, you can find us on youtube.com/PVA Radio, or you can find us on podcast services everywhere. We appreciate you listening. We're returning to normal schedule next week, guys. Join us for our charity stream on the 28th, starting at noon over here on our Twitch channel as well for able gamers. And then until next week, guys, we love you. Goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?